Are we ready? Are we ready? Yeah, we're live. We're live. I do. Oh, it's wonderful to be here. It's suddenly a thrill. We're such a lovely audience. We'd love to take you home with us. We'd love to take you home. I don't really want to start the show, but I thought you might like to know that the singer's gonna sing a song, and he wants you all to sing along. So let me introduce to you the act you know for all these years. It's Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. We hope you have enjoyed the show. With Sergeant Pepper's one and only Lonely Hearts Club Band. Sit back and let the evening go. Sergeant Pepper's lonely, Sergeant Pepper's lonely, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. What's up, people? It's the after party. And no, I'm not drunk. Not yet, anyway. I probably should have ran to the store before I started the stream, but I didn't have time watching this celebrity view of the big phone home all day, and I was so entertained that I actually forgot to drink. I forgot to get beer. That's all right. In any case, guys, anyone want to jump on the stream? I put the description in the link so you guys can jump on. Who else caught that? Who else caught that stream here on the big celebrity review? I was there towards the end. Briefly, they brought me on, man. It was like they kept going on. I was like, I wanted some time to get on there, but I got enough time. I got a good, even when I wasn't talking, I was showing all my slides in the background so I could, just let people know, like, who's this dude? Never heard of him before. I've been in UFOs and I don't know. Anyways, can you guys hear me all right? Everyone can hear me. Let's see. Check. My camera. Everything looks like it's working good. And nobody wants to join up in that live stream link. Please, let's jump on. Let's jump on the call, guys. Hit that link and join up. And let me hear your thoughts on this celebrity review. Let's talk about this. I open the conversation to my audience. I don't do this often, and I usually take these streams down once they're done. So this is like a one-time shot thing. Probably, guys, Unless I'm seriously dropping like serious bombs and information on a stream, there's no point in me like keeping it up on my channel, Oh, we got Maple Harvester. What is up, Maple Harvester?
What's up, alien scientist?
Can
you hear me?
You make it? Yeah, I can hear you, man. You making some maple syrup?
Yeah, no. I do grow maple trees though in my backyard, so that tends to work out. Those 8 hours went by pretty fast, man.
It did, man. That was like a who's who of everyone in the field of UFOs. Yeah, you want to? There we go. Look at that.
Yeah, I was kind of frustrated. I thought it lacked a little bit of structure. Lewis did a good job. It was kind of all over the place, but I expect that these things are new. Like your APEC conferences, everything like this is. Hello.
Yeah, you're still here. You're still live. I don't know what happened to him. What happened to him? No, come back. I don't know what happened to you, man. I moved this over to the other screen and you disappeared. You can come back. Anyone? Damn it! I had one guy on, and then that took him off. They don't want people talking to me on this channel. Damn it! Let's do a screen share, right? No, can I do a screen share? Let's share some documents.
All right, there he is. He's back.
Oh, sorry about that. My cat jumped on and tackled my laptop.
Dude,
So,
I don't know how it works. My cat, I leave my laptop open. My cat walks across it once, and it's in control panel and like messing up hardware settings on my computer. It's like they have I don't know how they have this innate ability to push the right key sequences with their paws.
yeah, it's the heat that I think generally attracts them to walking over the laptop. But I mean, what did you think of Lewis? I think he did a pretty good job. I think he got like a little starstruck a few times and a little nervous, but I think he, strung everything together pretty well. I think he learned a few things. Yeah, what did you think?
I think he did pretty good. I think he did. He of course, like he should. There was a lot of times when guests were talking, and I felt like it was just like a backslapping fest almost. Everyone just, and I was like, get more information out. Let's talk more about, this getting political and what we need to, how we need to do this. Because I know when I was like 10 years ago, when I wasn't as educated or up on this as I am now, when I was first starting to get into this, like maybe 15 years ago, I know that if I were to, this was going on then, and I tried to pick up the phone and, communicate what's going on with my senators, I wouldn't have the right ammunition. I wouldn't have a weaponized conversation. I wouldn't have I'd be calling them and sound, I'm wondering am I going to sound stupid? Like, what am I even doing calling the Senate Select Intelligence Committee and trying to tell them anything? And and now I'm at the point where I do have information that it's probably stuff that they don't have. Mm-hmm. And I put together these, this presentation for it so that I can be like, all right, well, let me know if you guys want a debriefing, because I doubt I'm going to learn more from your report than you could learn from my report if I made one.
Are you going to go for your presentation tonight since you got kind of shafted?
I could go through the whole presentation.
Or the highlights, I guess.
People already saw that. If they want to go watch that presentation, they can go check it out there. Maybe I'll show a couple of the new slides that I added and stuff. I added a slide after Battelle about Rand Corporation because I believe there's a lot of these Rand think tanks.
Yeah, I just got done reading Annie Jacobson's book, DARPA and the Pentagon's Brain.
Yeah.
Have you gotten into any of her stuff regarding her Area 51 book? And
I have her Area 51 book, and I was actually, they had the Pentagon's Brain, the DARPA book. They had it at Tim Pool's house, and I was reading it while I was at Tim Pool's house.
Oh wow!
So, but I did not get to read the whole thing. I want to order it and just so I can sit down and read the whole thing because it was super interesting. There was a lot of stuff in there. There was a lot of stuff I knew about.
Fantastic.
But there's some stuff that I didn't know about either, and
I always wanted to ask you this. I always in her book Area 51, she doesn't doubt Bob Lazar at all. But she says what he saw was a Russian craft. Have you ever gotten to that conversation about combining what Annie Jacobson said about Bob Lazar and what he experienced?
I don't recall the exact conversation in the book offhand with regards to that. Can you? But I mean, I'll comment on Bob Lazar case because
her conclusion at the end of the book, and this is Annie Jacobson. She takes her journalism very seriously, and she, when it comes to documenting,
well, it's also career suicide if you talk out about Bob Lazar because the entire UFO community will ostracize you.
Right, but her point was the Roswell was a Russian craft with. And there was a series of these Russian craft that were designed to look like the Roswell incident. Sorry, this wasn't Roswell. They were trying to scare the public, and they had these mutilated, I guess, corpses that they did genetic testing on in the Soviet Union. And this is what Annie Jacobson reported. And she says a lot of the crashes and what Bob Lazar saw was a Russian craft and these two genetically altered Russian pilots. And she says that pretty plainly. And I just, yeah, if you ever get
I
into
would
that,
love to see where's the hangar. If there's a hangar like this, it should be declassified and shown to the public. I mean, I covered a couple of there was a scientist named Louis, not Louis Alvarez. Who was the guy right here? Alfred Loading. And he's in my report. He worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he designed a lot of these saucer-shaped craft.
is that
You
real?
know?
I've always wanted to know if that was an actual.
Yeah, it's a guy named Alfred C. Loading, and I bet that they have a hangar somewhere with all this guy's experimental craft in there, and they might have brought a Bob in there for like disinformation or counterintelligence purposes, and gave him a bunch of fake debriefing documents with some crazy stuff in it, so he'd spread the rumor. That's my best theory on Bob, if he actually did work out there at all. The only thing is,
he definitely did work out there. I think that he tells the truth so well because he did work out there. And if he is lying, I think he's just fabricating the interactions with the craft. But if he isn't, I think either it was real or it is a psi operation.
this is in Canada. It was a Canadian craft, the VZ9 Avro car, and but there were a number of craft. It would be great to track them all down and see if they're somewhere, like, if they're not in a museum or where the heck they are. If they're all sitting in a hangar somewhere.
That's why more and more I contemplate these, the Nimitz incident and all these encounters. It's so probable that these are Lockheed Martin skunk works, operations.
But then why is the Navy? So the Navy doesn't know about this because it's need to know. Like, that's
well, I'm not saying all of it is. I'm saying I'd say probably a decent percentage is a secret tech that could be confusing. There's no way to say sure, but
that's why I say, you don't know what they have. Right. But that's why I gave a good outline of where to look in my report. So I have a whole section on faking UAP technology, right? So technologies for faking UAP encounters or maybe mistaken identity, cases.
And what would be the motivation behind faking a UAP encounter?
It's a lot of psychological operations, whether on domestic targets or on our enemies. I think that they, faking an encounter on the enemy side could, demoralize or send the enemy troops into a haywire if they were to witness or observe some kind of craft operating at, incredible speed. They also have technology that called microwave auditory effect, and where they can beam voices directly into your inner ear with microwaves. That's a real technology called Voice of God, and it's not well known or talked about, but it does exist. And then you had that Havana syndrome in that case in Havana with those Cuban, the Cuban embassy was direct. Scientists took a look at the symptoms, and they said these guys were hit with like microwaves or something. So there's all technologies like that. I try to cover all of them in my report, and I point to the fact that T.D. Barnes, the head of Area 51's engineering projects for the CIA, this guy right here, T.D. Barnes, he was asked about the Nimitz encounters, and he immediately said, this remind him of like these war games technologies and these counter radar, the ways that they can spoof the radar. So everyone talks, I want the video and the radar data. Well, they can spoof the video, they can spoof the radar data. Right. There's technologies to do this, and I try to, bring them up, and I haven't been taken seriously by the people that are really pushing this UAP and alien hypothesis for the origins hypothesis. And it just seems like, well, if we're going to investigate, aliens, we might as well investigate all these black budget programs that the government's been up to, because, there's concern about things that people are seeing flying around, including our own military, then, maybe there's more, like I could point to the fact that, people on that ship might not even have been briefed on this thing because they don't have a need to know. And it could be just an experimental craft that they don't know about, that they're just, don't understand what they're seeing. Like people have seen this airship in Russia that they built, this helium dirigible, and people have been reporting it as a UFO over in Russia. So
That's what I say about the UAP report. You know, people are expecting a whole bunch, but you might as well go up to, Congress and ask them about the black projects. They'll give you as much information about that as they will. And
if it provides a good cover for it, I don't know. It's just really hard to say what kind of information. I just put this together because I've been researching this seriously, and I feel like it would be valuable to my senator to have a report like this put together by someone who's really serious and open-minded about this. And
this is truly a grassroots movement, that's for sure.
And it's political too, because this UFO disclosure opens up the floodgate on everything. As a lot of these guys mentioned, it was talked about up at one point during the broadcast. It says, what happens once they admit that they have alien artifacts and aliens exist and that they've been covering it up? Like, it's basically like it's going to give the CIA would never do it because it gives the conspiracy, all other conspiracies are fair game at that point.
Well, you see what happened at Roswell. There's just the thought of aliens, and a whole town becomes devoted to the idea of aliens. Imagine that happening on a global scale. It's just the chaos is just unimaginable.
Well, that's a good point too, because what if it wasn't aliens? It was one of our experiments, our early space program experiments, like Walter Bosley says, and that these people turn the whole town, and it could be what's going on right now. This is just a giant psyop to convince everyone that it's really aliens and stuff. But
my buddy said this could be a science project gone wrong, and they fucked up like the space-time continuum. It was a crazy theory, but you got to cover every aspect.
Yeah, but I cover all those. You got to cover them all, but like bring it back to reality and what we can like prove with tangible. Like I want to give people something tangible that they can look into. Those UFO videos with the triangle and the blurry triangle, that's not putting our best foot forward. If we're showing senators that kind of information, we should be showing them, look, this is evidence of what our government's working on. These are evidence of the people that are working on it, and it's related to some advanced technologies which are connected to these companies, which really have been unchecked for 70 years, and could be hiding UFO secrets. And
what do you think about that NASA? Sorry to cut you off. That NASA craft that they released it in 2018, but I think they just really recently announced it, that it can break the sound barrier without a sonic boom. Their new
this is all related technology, man. It's all secret space program stuff, and I talked about in my report where it goes back to. It has its roots in NACA, and the precursor to NASA and the Orbiter project, and these secret, the fact that we had a space program in place even before this that was more secretive. And a lot of that information and development was put into, what would become NASA in 1958, when we combined the Ames Research Laboratories with staff with a lot of the other secret space program scientists in Huntsville, Alabama, that were, basically Operation Paperclip Nazis that were building our, our early rocket program, the decade before and a half before,
did you see the Project Blue Book series? The 2 seasons, the fictional show.
I didn't watch that. I can't watch fictional stuff about this stuff. I'm too into facts and real information. I can't do the fiction.
As entertainment, it's suspending belief. You wouldn't get the reference if I mentioned it, but it's pretty detached, but it's interesting to watch if you're messing around.
So did you get a chance to check out also, I did did you see that anti-gravity video with Don Lincoln from Fermi Labs?
Oh, that you posted this morning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
What'd you think about that?
I need to rewatch the video because I either watch them on the fly or I take notes while I'm watching. So if you go over talking points, I'll jump in.
All right. Yeah. So anyways, this guy, Don Lincoln we got Fermi Labs, and this video's already, it was like just a couple days ago. They're the ones that did the G-2 muon experiment that all of, it's gotten all over the news, and it's been a sensation. So right after that announcement, they put out this video just 3 days ago, and it's already got over 100,000 views, working its way up to 500,000. And I've been trying my best to bombard the comment section to get these people to come and check out my channel, because this video is like, it's a 9-minute long video. He calls it a complete, at one point he calls this a complete analysis of anti-gravity. But I kind of went through it and made a couple points. He says it was rotating superconductors. He misses the bilayer disk and the radio frequency fields. He showing that he didn't actually read the Plitnov or listen to any of the interviews that I have posted on my channel.
Didn't this frustrate a lot of people in the community, this video?
It frustrated the people who follow my channel, and they were a lot of them saw this and were waiting to hear my response to it. And so I could have probably put together a little shorter one, a little more succinct and stuff. But just a couple main points on it is that, he didn't read, he doesn't give credit to the scientists. He won't even name the scientists that did this research. And, he says that, it's probably possible, maybe it could be, possible with this antimatter stuff, and cites the experiments that they're at Fermilab. Well, not even talking about the other experiments that are being done by Daniel Kaplan and Paul Scherrer Institute on muonium, which is a different type of antimatter atom, a neutral form of antimatter, unlike the types of antimatter that they're trying to create. So I don't know. It's just and then he touts this $1 million prize.
I don't remember that part.
So you hear that?
No, nothing's coming through.
So it talks about this Goldie Award, and this prize for, if you believe you've got it's a $1 million is what they offer for basically the biggest discovery of the entire century, anti-gravity. I guarantee you, right? This $1 million prize is a joke, because there should be $1 million grants just to get into the research, because Fermilab has $546 million in funding per year. So it's not even
in black projects, that's for sure. Just publicly.
I know that more than that has been spent in black projects researching this stuff. All right. And I know for a fact, if you discovered anti-gravity and tried to go collect this Goldie Award, Lockheed Martin would come to you with a much bigger number. You know what I'm saying? So it's a joke. It's a joke to say that there's a €1 million award if you figure out or discover anti-gravity. Just shut up and fund the research and share a piece of the pie. And I don't know. It's just crazy, man. How this is. And then he goes on to talk about the UFO community and mention Bob Lazar and some conspiracy stuff. And that's so far from the truth. And he gets all this wrong too. He talks about antimatter is going to be really hard to produce, even with advanced technology. You have no idea the technology that exists today, and you have no idea the technology that's coming. You've shown in this video, this short summary, that you understand, basically a freshman's level understanding of the physics involved in all this, what antimatter is, and what the equivalence principle is, and some of the physics that he talks about for the 3 minutes that he covers real physics. But he just does a whole disservice to the entire field and all the dozens of researchers that I've interviewed who've been working in this field, and it's just that was a shame. But it goes to show people, I use this as an example of what Bob Lazar has he's caused damage, because this guy clearly has looked into some of this UFO stuff and found the Bob Lazar stuff, and he makes fun of it in the video. And it just goes to show you how real physicists think about this, and you ask, I want to see more real physicists asked about Bob Lazar, because it's important to show people the damage that, that kind of disinformation causes to the community's credibility. But again, these schemes for generating antimatter I cover in my these are covered in declassified documents too. Like, So I didn't make this stuff up, right? Where is it? This one. No, where's the one?
Science isn't my background, so I'm speaking out of ignorance. But if you can tell me this new, fifth force of nature, that has been recently discovered by physicists, does that have any attachment to antimatter or dark matter?
What fifth force of?
You haven't heard that recently?
No. Send me a link to that. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty huge.
Hey, could I say something?
Yeah, man, jump in. And
I don't want to cut anyone off. I don't want to be rude.
What's up, Rogue Drone?
So,
welcome to the stream. Go ahead.
I've been following you probably since like 2011 or so, and it's been a lot of fun. I just want to thank you because I've, in a lot of ways, had my mind opened by some of the things that you've posted, and it's been great. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, man. Thanks for joining us.
Moving forward, I've always been a little skeptical. I grew up in a fairly conservative household, and I had a lot of military background in my family. And going back to my grandfather, who was in World War II, talked about seeing strange things that should not have been there. He didn't want to call it anything, but he just said there's weird things out there. And it kind of like triggered interest to me because, one, I had like all these people in my family that were into aviation, and it sparked interest. So I started looking into stuff, and I believe it's undeniable to say that there are things out there that are very qualified, trained people see that can't explain. It just doesn't make sense. They see it and they don't really want to talk about it because it's almost shameful to bring it up because they can't really say exactly what they saw, but it leaves the window open for a lot of ridicule. And there certainly is a lot of that in the armed forces for people that report UFOs and things like that. So I kind of started looking deeper into it, and I found some pretty weird stuff. And one of the things that always like kind of captured my attention was the fact that billions and billions of dollars get thrown into research of any kind that provide us a tactical advantage, right? What would be better than an aircraft that can be relocatable, move very quickly, get information, have a tactical advantage if it were to, say, drop bombs? That would be a winner, wouldn't it?
Crown jewels.
I mean, if you can get something that can get information, very, because we know we have satellites and they're great, but they're very hard and expensive to move, and you can only move them so many times. So if you're lucky and you're over the right place, you get the pictures you want. That's great, but ideally that would be wonderful, but normally that's not the case. You're not usually where you want to be exactly during the time you need the information. So if anything we're investing in, it would be an aircraft that could move quickly and get the information you need and get back home safely, right? So I think it would be an act of idiocy on the people that have these vast amounts of research and development money available to them if they didn't look into this sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be an idiot, right?
I want to say, like, yeah, because that's a good point. That's kind of that argument is exactly what I'm trying to condense to like bring to the senators, because I think that will pique their interest more than, and especially, learning about those technologies for defense purposes and defending the country against, enemy technology and stuff like that. So again, but the
if you had a blank
point is
check,
that
what might you be able to achieve if you can keep everything secret and you can throw as much treasury as you please at it? And we know there's a lot of smart people with different.
It's not the treasury problem. It's not the smart people. It's it's the failure of imagination. And I think the Chinese are beating us on that front. They're years ahead of us. And
are they though?
I think
I think this goes back to the 50s, though. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
They're catching up. They're not there yet, but
you think?
What were the Chinese in the 50s? And not, by the way, I don't mean to be rude to any of our listeners who are of Oriental descent. I'm not even sure if that's the proper thing to say, but I'm just saying I don't think they've had the resources
the Orient
for as long as we have to throw billions of dollars. And billions of dollars in the 50s were not what billions of dollars are today.
Right. No, I get it. But the argument I was trying to make is that we need more young people thinking outside the box and thinking about anti-gravity, and stifling that kind of thought is not conducive to getting new young people interested in studying physics. And it's not going, like I mentioned at the end of the conference, my last parting words were, anti-gravity is, if it's real, it's going to be figured out by the people who believed in it, not the people that, didn't believe in it and said, oh, we'll just wait for someone else to do the experiments. And here's $1 million prize if you think you got something. And
one of your latest videos,
like Dr. Pius, his patents, they're not dismissing those type of things. So I think they encourage a lot of that stuff. But what you were saying earlier, everyone runs into this one wall. Black projects, you're not going to get any answers on that. But it's like you were saying, it's like in the 60s when Robert McNamara, the Secretary of Defense, when he found out about Skunk Works, he was pissed and he liked to be in control. And he shut down Skunk Works when he found out that Congress was.
Why would he do that, though?
Because Robert McNamara
was to us.
It was after the U2 program, and it was before the F-117, and they kind of had like a lull.
And Eisenhower was embarrassed. Okay.
A lot of the U2 crashes were that led up to McNamara shutting down Skunk Works. But the fact that he found out that there were black projects going on, and he had the ability to shut it down, that compared to today, that's a relic of the past. We're never going to get that type of action, from a gung-ho senator or anybody up in the higher chains. But it's even if you want to get information on UAPs, we're always going to run into the black project wall. And I think climbing that is the thing we need to figure out how to navigate.
Well, what I would do is who cares what other people are doing in black projects? And so only insofar as you can garner information from said projects are they valuable. But the best thing to do would just to create your own parallel organization. You could call it a direct competitor to Skunk Works, but with a different clientele and market. So rather than trying to market directly to the DoD, you take your technology that you've developed in parallel and you market it towards other civilian applications if you want to proliferate the technology. Now, on the matter of things like, Chinese national technological developments or et cetera, a lot of Eastern cultures are very, very traditional. They have almost pseudo caste systems that don't take kindly to outside the box thinkers shaking things up, so to speak.
Right.
This has caused various issues. This has caused a real. I mean, Xi Jinping himself has gone on record stating quite plainly that their culture of face, their culture of Confucianism, which is basically just this extreme reverence for the way systems already exist for seniority, etc., has a big. So it's really good in the sense that your society is really stable. As society as a whole is very stable. There's not a lot of chaos. But that also means there's not a lot of innovation or development or advancements either.
Hence their copyright infringement, I guess we see a lot of, right?
I mean, there's a lot of things that prop up as a result and emerge as a result of these various cultural debacles and these cultural zeitgeists. But the East Asian cultures, they're very traditional, they're very stable, but it comes at the price of it comes at the price of its rate of technological advancement is very underperforming, let's say.
Well, if you're to be punished for thinking outside of the box, then you probably won't want to put a lot of stuff out there. It makes complete sense.
Yeah, well, the fall of the Soviet Union is related to all of that. Something
the
that we
light.
saw in our lifetime that was a consequence of thinking outside the box. But I think China is evolving a little bit more, and I think they're getting a little bit more tactical in how they allow their center base to think and
Well, the
so,
Chinese are not putting their policy chips into advancing technology or their own civilization. What they're doing is they're undermining other civilizations financially, such as South America and even the U.S., by using soft power, is what they call it, soft power influences. And these soft power influences do things like that they start to financially and by extension ideologically influence these pillars of society, such as academia, bureaucratic systems, various government agencies, and
right.
they this influence to undermine the long-term interests of their national
Hmm?
competitors.
In China, they're also stealing state secrets without having to put the R&D into getting those secrets, and that's been a huge issue for the United States.
Espionage of that nature is common throughout the world. It's called corporate espionage in the private sector side of things, or just straight up spying if you're talking about a national security sort of matter. But yeah, just spying and espionage, that's par for the course. That's nothing unique. That's nothing unique to China. That's been a thing since the beginning of human history. The only fundamental difference is that the Chinese have used their soft power to allow for espionage that would, in prior generations, result in people getting thrown into cells or quietly being vaporized, so to speak. But they've been able to use their soft power to convince. And I'm not sure if convince is the word, but they've been able to use soft power and financial influences in academia and various bureaucratic structures and organizations to get people in these institutions to turn a blind eye to blatant espionage.
I think that's all. That is, I think, with they're trying to. Do you go by the scientist? I don't know how to address you properly.
You call me Jeremy. That's fine.
Whatever you prefer, Jeremy. I feel like that one of the problems we have is a lot of people see something and we say aliens too quickly. And when you think about the vast distances and the time and the luck that would be required, and to get to the Earth, to come so far and to crash here, is a terrible irony, I feel. And they say things like radar caused like the Roswell incident. Like, really? They developed technology that can transverse this kind of space, and they didn't like foresee radar interference. I feel like we need to more look inward than out to the stars when we're trying to identify what's going on. Now, I don't say that I don't think the aliens aren't there, of course, with this amount of room. And I mean, life is isn't it basically a chemistry thing. Like if you have this certain amount of oxygen, hydrate, whatever it might be, and you're this far from the sun, you have a big planet like Jupiter to suck up all of the asteroids so you can survive long enough to evolve life. I'm sure there's tons of it out there. But we know, looking with the Hubble and everything else, it's very far away. It's really hard to do. So I would kind of lean on the fact that it's probably from here. And we need to study that more than...
That's predicated upon which cosmological model of the universe you subscribe to. If you subscribe to a pure gravity-based model of the universe, those are some great points. But if you're a plasma cosmologist or an electrical cosmologist and you subscribe to those different models of cosmology, which do have a lot of anthropological evidence supporting them and quite a fair amount of observable and lab evidence as well, then those vast distances aren't as vast as you think. There's no hard cap on the speed limit, right? So there's no can't go faster than light idea. That, if you subscribe to, say, plasma cosmology, you don't think that it's impossible to travel faster than light, and there's not a lot of evidence to support the idea that you can't anyway. The sound barrier used to be called the sound barrier because it was thought that nobody would be able to go faster than sound. You could use a spacecraft shaped similarly to a Langmuir probe to insert your craft into a interstellar Birkeland current or Birkeland filament, and then this would propagate your craft across the galaxy at quite a rapid pace, almost like these plasma rails, so to speak. There's all different models of cosmology, and we're not sure, which one is correct with any degree of semblance, despite how dug in most academics are with their various pet models. The reality of the matter is we don't know how the universe works, and so we can't make those axiomatic assumptions.
Wouldn't it require, say you could go, I don't know, it's the speed of light or more? Isn't it great amount that would be needed? Wouldn't it be like that? You turn your head.
Only under relativity. Only under relativity does going faster increase mass.
No, I'm saying, say they can go very fast, whatever you want to call that. Maybe even like
Sorry, go ahead. But it's ways about exploiting. The laws of physics aren't there to it's like they're there to be broken and figure out ways to exploit them and why they are the way they are. And they are the way they are because of the speed of light is the speed of light because of the permeability and permittivity of free space. But if we build specialized materials where we can alter those constants, we can specialize environments within those materials where the speed of light is not c. The speed of light's different, and you can have different effects inside of those types of materials if you get them tuned right. And,
I wouldn't even assume that what we call our constants are actually constants. We don't know that with any degree of assurity. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake talks about how nature has habits, not constants or laws, and he considers the idea of laws of physics to be a very anthropocentric mindset because it's an axiomatic assumption that the patterns of nature must obey the laws of man. And I tend to agree that is an anthropocentric presumption.
So you're on the side of very easily be advanced extraterrestrial life.
No, I'm on the side of
said technology.
I'm on the side of I don't know because we don't understand how the universe works. People talk a lot about gravity distorting space-time fabrics and stuff, but when you ask them where does gravity come from, and they just say, well, it's an intrinsic property of matter. And
no, I agree. There's a lot of work to be done on gravity, and which is why I'm so grateful for people like Jeremy doing what they're doing. Right,
and so at the end of the day, to say that there's these vast distances, and it'd be really, really hard to get there. Well, canoeing, taking a kayak from
also time. Remember too.
Well, right, but if you had to take a kayak from West Africa to Central America 30,000 years ago, and all you had was a wooden kayak, you'd say it was impossible. The distances and the time scales just preclude it from being a thing, right? But then as you gain a higher degree of technological prowess and understanding of the natural world around you, suddenly that distance becomes ever shorter with things like the age of sail, and then eventually large marine diesel propulsion systems, and then aircraft, which make transcontinental and continental to other continental flights very, very fast. So what would have been an impossible journey that was just much too vast in distance and time required to make said journey now is a 3-hour flight.
Fair point. And it would have been a witchcraft if you went back far enough.
Yep. Any
even suggest such a thing.
Technology. So everybody here is familiar and has heard the phrase, and any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Well, futurist, I forget his name off the top of my head. He was a British futurist. Arthur C. Clarke. That was Clarke's third law. But Arthur C. Clarke had two previous laws that preceded and came before the Clarke's third law. And the first law is when an utterly but distinguished scientist says that something is impossible, he's almost certainly wrong. And when he says that something is possible, he is most certainly right. And the second law is the only way to find out what's possible is to venture a little ways into the impossible. And I find it interesting that the first and second law are trying to illustrate and say the same point in two different ways, as though he was trying to provide immense emphasis before moving on to the now famous third point, which is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And people have glossed over both the first and the second of his three laws of futurism. And we can speculate as to why, but at the end of the day, people did it. They forgot the first and the second law, and they latched on to the eloquent third law, completely eschewing the fact that we don't know what we know. And the worst part of it is that in the modern zeitgeist of academia, especially, is that these people know what they're saying to be true, and they know that it's true even if it's not. And that's a very big problem.
I appreciate your perspective, sir, and I lend it great credit. I just feel like if we're to get anywhere, it's going to be because of research and discoveries done here. I feel like to move what I feel like a lot of us ultimately want to understand and have a grip on, we have to do it here. We have to do the math. We have to do the experiments. And that's why I'm so happy to have had the time to talk to you gentlemen. And it was an honor. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Fred Davis is
awesome.
in the chat.
Thank you so much.
For those of you who just joined, we have a link to the StreamYard live chat in the link of the description of this video. Trying to get more people in here with cameras. If you got a camera, that would be awesome. I know some people don't have cameras, but Fred Davis said he said, what is StreamYard? There's a link to StreamYard in the description. That's the software that we're using to broadcast this, and you can just click right in and join with just a webcam. So it's makes it pretty easy.
Jeremy, I would like to listen. Should I leave this to not take up anyone else's space who would like to speak as well?
If you have one more question, I can answer it before you go, and then you can.
I don't want to take up someone else's spot. I didn't know if it was like banned. I could listen through this, but maybe I should leave to give other people a turn.
Yeah, we got a bunch of people lined up right now, and I can only have 6 on at a time. So
all right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure. Have a wonderful evening. I'll listen from here on out.
Yeah, man. And if you want to join back in later, you always can. So, Simon, what's up, too?
What's up, man? Hey, nice to speak to you. I'll probably bounce out here since there's people waiting.
Yeah, I want to try and get some new people on tonight and talk more about the UFO topic rather than the engineering and all the science and stuff. It's Saturday night, man. Well, we didn't have APEC tonight. I know some guys are starved for some of that tech talk and stuff, man.
Yeah, good job with that show that was today. What was it called again?
It was the big phone home that they had like 500 people, 600 watching at one point when it first started this afternoon. But it was pretty epic. They had pretty much like a who's who of UFOs. It was like everybody was on that, including my arch nemesis Jeremy Corbell. We kind of we had to agree to put our differences aside, and I had to agree not to go after him or call him out or anything.
Yeah, I caught the first guest, and then I caught him, and then I turned it. It was so long, I had to go do stuff. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
Seemed like most of his time bragging, honestly.
I specifically took the day off, because Saturday is usually APEC conference. Because we didn't have APEC conference, this was like, all right, well, this is what took over instead. Because normally we just all sit around and talk propulsion engineering for 8 hours, but I decided to watch that instead of this Saturday. So it was certainly cool to check out, and I see Sean going through some of the patents right now. I wish your screen share came through where you could actually read stuff. When I think when I share my screen, it does a lot better at showing stuff to the audience. But these are some really cool patents that we have on the drive. Sean, why don't you talk a little bit about that? And oh, what's up, Grandmaster? Man, mute your mic if you're not talking. But what's up?
Yeah, this is just the Lake Marabou stuff. It's just a MHD accelerator and how they're using the conducting plasma and the bow shock wave in order to create lift. It's pretty much a flying nozzle. That's what the craft is. Instead of a flying wing.
Basically just revolved around an axis instead.
Yeah, just turn the whole thing into a nozzle and fly it off. This one talks about the ramjet method of it. There's many others. There's like a rotary detonation you can use with this same type of craft. Let's see.
Who doesn't love Bob? Well, Don Lincoln at Fermi Labs didn't love Bob that much and used it to discredit, like all of us, to his physics pals. 100,000 of them, probably. That's probably sent out to every physics department. Won't be surprised if my professor sends it to me before next week and says, "Hey, look at this." Says, "Nope, I already put out a response video." So I don't know. It's a mixed bag. Yeah, it gets new people into it. It starts a conversation, but again, I have my mixed feelings about putting which physicists I'd like to see on Joe Rogan talking about UFOs, and which physicists I'd like to see my senators, talking to and asking about where the programs exist, because I don't think they're out at S4, out at Papoose Lake. I'd done the research, man. They're definitely going on elsewhere. We had the Aurora project, which we revealed the other night with those flying triangles. We had a whole show on the flying triangles because thanks to Mr. Corbell. And we talked about Ed Fouché, and we talked about how he said Buckley Air Force Base was where they were doing these experiments. And it turns out Buckley Air Force Base is in Aurora, Colorado, which gave us like a big aha moment for why it was called the Aurora Project at Boeing Phantom Works there. So, yeah, just trying to bring highlights of stuff that comes out, because we have these long podcasts, and I'd like to bring in people from the audience so that we get a bunch of new people on to give their comments, and then and that was a good format that one night. I had 500 people watching that one night. We were just having people on to tell UFO stories. And it was just fun. It was no science, and it was just like UFO stories. I think I'd like to do that like once a week, where we just have like a fun night to talk about, just to let everything goes,
If you
What do you
want
think about
something
that?
that's both fun, interesting, and has the possibility of panning out in more ways than one, would actually be an Antarctic expedition. I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but if you try to use Google Maps, Google Earth Map, Question, whatever source you desire, you'll find that many swaths of Antarctica are deliberately blurred, blacked out, censored, etc. Trying to go to Antarctica is very, very difficult. So if you were in charge of an organization that had a plethora of resources at hand and you wanted to keep what you were doing very secretive, Antarctica is a perfect place to do it, because it's very difficult for anyone to put their nose or their eyes on the entire continent to begin with. And even once they're there, it's fairly easy to track them and monitor them, etc. So yeah, if you wanted to do a secretive black project, doing it on an Antarctic base would be the way to go. That being said, we could reasonably fund an Antarctic expedition long term. It would cost about $30 million. We'd have to build custom Antarctic and exploratory and expeditionary vehicles, both small aircraft and screwdriver and tracked vehicle systems with onboard living quarters and various things that need to happen, tools, cranes, etc. And this could be justified as mineralogical resource searching. So we just have geologists, whether they're petrochemical engineers, geologists, and whatever, and we're looking for minerals, resources.
No. See, you're going there to see about climate change.
That too.
And you get funding. Boom.
That too. Of course, that too. Taking core samples, all these different things, and we just happened to stumble upon this giant pyramid. Oh, so unintentional. Tee-hee. Right?
For real. Sorry, I'm reading the live chats, man. So, who everyone who just tuned in, smash that like button if you can. I don't know, or smash the dislike button if you don't like it. I don't really care. But there's a link in the description. You guys can join in, and I'll try and get everyone on here. We'll rotate people out as we go, and get some interesting folks to talk to. I want to hear the community. I want to hear what you guys thought. Did you guys check out what do you guys think of Lewis and the idea of getting everyone together once a year just to put aside our differences and come together for what we call UFO disclosure? Do you think that there are, I don't know. It's like I always suspect the conspiracy theorist and me suspects that there's bad players like in this group trying to like cover up things and misdirect and stuff. So like I'm glad that I got in. I know that it wasn't run by those kind of forces because it was this independent event started by this guy who's really new to the community, it seems, and or he is new to the community, and Luis Jimenez, and I really like him. He's a good host. He's got a good personality. He's got a good stage presence, and he allowed me on the conference to come in and say my piece, and he had me on his show. So, that's props to him. So again, I there's a lot of other guys out there I'm not so sure about because they aren't open to debate and having a conversation with me,
Yeah, I think you should probably maybe treat it. I mean, it's just my opinion, but treat it the way Tim Pool treats politics. You want to know what both sides are thinking. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if you've got an opposition that might be trying to misinform on purpose or whatever, what better way than to listen to what they have to say so you can kind of, use your intellect to read between the lines and figure out what they're up to, So, I mean, since
it seems like
this thing is, since you are critical of it, you're less prone to falling into their trap. You're more prone to recognizing and maybe even be able to, to be able to warn others that are honestly trying to tread the true path, to avoid those pitfalls, or at least, give them information so they can make their own educated guess,
I think equally it's a question of people fooling themselves, not just necessarily other people.
Yeah, a lot of it's organic.
That's a trick too, is figuring out which is which.
Right, because and a lot of it's just propped up because as I explained, the best way to the best disinformation is organic misinformation that you just prop up secretly. So you find these guys that are, the David Wilcox, and you start, throwing them $1 million, and prop them up and give them a huge platform so that they can spread their disinformation. And but in any case, maybe I shouldn't get into naming names and going after people. Today's supposed to be the truth day, right? I don't know. What do you guys think? I want to get more opinions on here. Jump on the that StreamYard link and jump in the chat and give your opinions. And
before I log off, because I don't want to hog up airtime, I want to make space for others. Somebody in the chat said that, the aliens are fallen angels, to quote him directly. The existence of one does not preclude the existence of the other. Both could exist simultaneously.
I'd just like to say that I was pretty impressed with Deep, and I'm hoping that you guys managed to get them all sometime in the near future.
I'm sorry, could you speak up? I couldn't hear that.
Deep, he's talking about Deep Prasad, who was on the podcast right after me. Yeah, that would be interesting to get a conversation with him, because I know we do have a lot of common ground on certain things, and he's got at least a scientific perspective on this stuff, and it's good to hear. It's good to hear from other people who are into this, but don't agree with us on everything. We need more of that. Yeah, I would love to get I'd love to get him on for a conversation. I know we've had a bunch of fights in the past, mostly over the Balazar stuff, which I get in a lot of fights with people over, because it's just insane story that I spent a lot of time on, and I feel very strongly about, and I have a lot of research on that people don't really dig in and look at before they. I don't know. So, anyways, anyone, Simon, do you have any more questions? And Sean, did you have anything you wanted to say? And Sky,
you mentioned.
No, I don't want.
No, go ahead.
I was
Anyone?
just gonna say, I don't want to take up any more airtime. The only thing I'll leave off on is that I think we can get a lot of this research done if it has a secondary or even tertiary benefits beyond just, anti-gravity effects. For example, if we wanted to research the effects of, using frequencies on solid materials to do things like create metal glasses or to shape and form structures with a degree of precision without vitrification or various other things, we can have. The material science specifically is very based in the sense that material science and the academics in material science have not been corrupted, in the sense that they don't have pet models, they don't have pet theories, there's not a lot of egos on the line. Material scientists throw shit at the wall and they see what sticks, and they don't give a fuck what the results are so long as the results are accurate. So we could justify a lot of stuff as under material science investigation and development, and not a lot of people are going to raise an eyebrow.
I just think that this opportunity to approach the Senate to use to look to get funding and try to get funding for the operation. And I don't know. Sirens, welcome to the chat.
Hey man, how you doing?
Trying to rotate some new people into the call. And thank you guys for joining and asking questions. And what do you guys think? And first off, introduce yourselves. Are you guys? Where do you guys come in on the spectrum? You guys, Corbell fans? You guys, Bob Lazar fans?
Let me come in real quick. I mean, kind of bit of my background, obviously Scottish accent, but I work in a lot of kind of cool kind of technologies, subsea. Do a lot of interesting sort of like subsea electronics and stuff like that, and I've worked in some kind of cool projects, but I think just now there's just so much going on, so much disinformation. It's hard to pin it down, but the one thing I was wanting to come in and was the throwing shit at the wall, because I think this whole idea of let's just fuck about with physics, but like they really need to understand. Yeah, but I think as well, like I think that it'd be quite easy. Like we probably don't know what our technology even is, like what we're capable of doing, like, particularly with particle physics. No, that's just one of the points. It's more, I know it's a bit like, but I think that the stuff that we're playing with is really, it's next level. You don't know how much energy's in there. And it's just sort of like a kid playing with a spring. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't know if it's going to get smacked in the face.
Yeah, it's the cat playing with a spring, right? Yeah, exactly it. Playing with fire, man.
You mentioned something earlier when you were talking in one of your the other videos where they were talking about like $1 million prize for proving any of those technologies, and you were saying, it's much more. It should be 100 billion or something like that. And it's like, I think you're short selling it. I don't think there's a monetary value you can put on something like that, because it could be disruptive to where what you're trying to get the Senate to do now, that could put you in a position where you could force that without their approval even. They wouldn't have a choice. You could literally push their hand with something that of that level of technology. I mean,
so I've been following the disclosure thing pretty close, and it looks like there's a chance something big could be coming down the pike.
Like big, like as in what? Do you have any information, or do you have?
Yeah. So what I saw was that back in June of 2020, Trump, on an interview with his son, they were talking about, hey, so are you going to release anything on Roswell? And Trump gets really like sly and is like, oh, you know, I gotta play the cards close to my chest. Then in August, he got a new national intelligence director that hated the FBI secrets. That's behind a lot of the upcoming disclosure, Daniel Ratcliffe. Then in October, if you look at Google Trends on the release of unclassified information, you can see right around then it starts spiking, especially around Alabama and DC. Sure enough, by beginning of December, we have one of the big higher ups, Haim Eshed, the defense minister of Israel, who had been the defense minister there for like 40 years. He came out and he said, there's a galactic federation, you know, aliens are real, Trump was about to spill the beans, and everybody just wrote him off as being a crazy old kook. And then end of December, Trump signs this bill for disclosure. And then here we are now, 2 months out from June, coming for disclosure, and we've had the Pentagon release even more acknowledgments of, you know, hey, yeah, these videos are real. These 60 Navy personnel plus the commander didn't just see bokeh, like they saw something within 150 feet of the destroyer. I don't know. It seems like they could be leading up to, at a bare minimum, an acknowledgement of the technology. That's like the lowest level. At the bigger level, I mean, who knows how much they'd be willing to do it. But right before I saw you come on, Jeremy, I saw that the Chinese NASA just either they got hacked, their Twitter got hacked, or they're trying to actually come out. But they just said, we have found evidence of intelligence. So maybe I'm just crazy. I'm seeing connections where there aren't any connections, or maybe it's possible that you should start buying toilet paper. That was all I had.
Oh, you can't even hear me, bro. Damn it. So I unmuted myself. I meant to say that oh God, I don't even know how long I've been going on for. I've been trying to talk all these chats. So Stephen Greer, right? You know, Stephen Greer said that he thinks that this is all a New World Order bluff with Alex Jones. Right? That's what Stephen Greer says, that this is all he's on Alex Jones the other day saying that that there's no federation, it's all a New World Order plan, and that that this is just they're the Pentagon seeing what they can get away with in terms of counterintelligence and what they can convince people to believe. The whole UFO community falling for it. So we always have to be skeptical. The government,
Agreed.
you know.
One final thing to consider, maybe. 40% of the United States believes that the world is 10,000 years old or less. They also have a lot of guns. Yes. So, I mean, if it did end up being a big bad thing, they could be trying to slowly eke it out in just little bits over the long haul, like just starting in June, to try to help people acclimate if such a big reveal were to happen of any level, even just the minimum. But the Salvatore Pais coming out with the Navy saying that they have technology that's going to reshape the fabric of reality. I think that was in February he came out with that. I don't know, man. It could go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I just think there should be my opportunity to seize on this is I want more public funding. I want government funding for investigations into this, and I want to see organizations like serious scientific organizations like APEC and the stuff that we're trying to set up to get funding to do this type of research. Because I've had a lot of people approach me, even people from the military, say, I loved your briefing that you put together. I've seen like hundreds of briefs in my military career, and this was a really good one that you put together. And, you know, teaching people to be skeptical, teaching people to, you know, call BS on everything unless there's like absolute proof, and don't just buy any of the narratives being strewn right now. Assume that you're being manipulated, that everyone's working against you, and just assume that everyone's either misled or full of crap. And that you'll get much further than jumping on bandwagons, you know? So, again, I would love to, I've had people say that, you know, we should be head of the Fox. We should be Fox Mulder. We should be head of this UFO like investigative department, you know, and that would be great to have an organization like this set up of serious researchers that are, you know, that briefs on my channel. It's called the UAP briefing. It's the main. It should be the main video on my channel, unless the newest one is set to that. It was about a week or two ago, and I also have UAP briefing documents that are associated with that people can look up too. So you have actual documents you can print out and bring to your senator's office or send to them, or have stuff to. That was my point, and like in that whole thing, it was just trying to give people more ammunition and ideas of what to call in for and ask for and where to go and look for it, you know? Because if we're going to ask the government for answers and beg our senators to, you know, push for a disclosure, we better have our, you know, information together and our ducks in a row, what we want them to actually disclose and where we want them to look for. You know, it's kind of like a search warrant, you know, you name the places to be searched and the items to be seized. Reverse search warrant.
You might do yourself a favor. Yeah, as I say, you might do yourself a favor and like compartmentalize all of this, and then that way you can use that as an angle of trajectory to apply for specific grants that are already available too, because they're often offering millions of dollars worth of grants for like alternative energy and stuff like that. So alternative propulsion and whatnot, you know, grants to work.
We should get Sky back on here. He's like,
you know, basically benefit NASA and whatnot. So it's all about getting that grant writer and then compartmentalizing so they know what to write for, you know. So because you can find all that stuff, you know, using Google, but if you don't know how to word it to the person who's going to be reading the grant proposal, you know, or you don't have time to sit down and properly word it, they're just going to kick it out. So I think that's probably the big thing, is just knowing what not to do to cause it to automatically get kicked out, you know, and avoid all of those so that way the rest of it gets actually read, because then you got the best chance, because they're sitting there with money. They're just like, well, nobody's asked for this. I know we weren't we were holding this money in case something else came up, but it's almost the end of the year. We got to get rid of this money, and these guys want it. Give it to them. Just give it to them. And that could be your start. Then, you know, everything else just snowball from there, you know.
Frick's got the right idea. We'll just say that it's a gender study, and we'll get government funding.
Mike McCulloch was successful getting a DARPA grant of like $2.5 million for his M drive experiments. So there's money out there for these.
Yeah. M drive. I was say it's a gender studies for Kekistan.
Or threat. Nah, that's a little too off base. That was just a joke, but you know, but the maybe we'll say that the threat. That's why they have the threat narrative. I believe that's why they have the threat narrative, because unless you have a threat, and there's no reason to fund this stuff, you know. So that's kind of the way that they're portraying it, to get more funding for the Pentagon, more funding for space, more funding for space wars, you know, more funding for, you know, these kind of programs and stuff. And I like I said, this is military
if you approach
contractors.
It as something that's not a threat, though. I was say, if you approach it as something that's not a threat, and somebody else approaches something as a threat, they're going to prioritize survival over pushing forward on something that they may or may not need to survive a coming threat. So it's
Right.
probably
Well,
necessary to
that's
make
why.
sure you include the potential for use in threat. I guess what do you call it? Not abatement, but basically something that makes sure that you're including that. Hey, this could be used in case of this type of threat and this type of threat. So just another reason. Hey, yeah, give us the money. In fact, maybe you can give us 2 grants instead of 1. Like I said, compartmentalize. What all are you trying to do? What are all the goals that it can accomplish? And then let the grant writing flow, because if you write enough grant proposals, you're going to get something. And like I said, once you get the first thing to start getting some serious work done, it's just going to snowball from there. You'll be able to start getting other grants then. So, especially if
But
you
you
get any
also,
results from any of the grants.
I mean, you need to look at crowdfunding as well, because there's definitely a lot of money out there that would be definitely a lot willing to just put it on a bet. If you could get some system together that you go, right, it's going to cost $500,000, and you put it out to the internet, getting that money together isn't very hard these days. Money is just flying around literally everywhere. People would put money into this if this was in the stock market.
Right.
Infinite value.
Right.
Yeah, buying in on something
Well,
like
the
this would
biggest
be
thing
like
too,
buying in Bitcoin in 2009, man. We should start our own crypto.
Yeah.
Right. It's a double whammy for them though too, because once they give you that money and you spend it, it goes into the economy, and that's something they've been pushing for quite a while, is to just fluff that economy up by any means necessary, without having to basically say, hey, we put more money in the economy. Instead, they can say, oh, we gave some money to these people to do this thing, and not mention that it's new money in the economy. So
Yeah,
lie
no,
by
I know.
omission.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's why the stock market and Bitcoin's out of whack, because the money's just been taken.
That's also why people who run these, get a credit card companies were able to repetitively get new credit cards whenever they never paid off the old ones. They would write letters to get things taken off their credit report, and then they would go and apply for more credit cards, because some of these banks, they have to give that money out or they'll get fined more than they will lose if they give you that money knowing you're not going to give it back.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So,
yeah, I mean the incentives are on the wrong structure, but it's that's like people are going, oh well, I mean capitalism is amazing for a lot of things, but it's terrible for a lot of other things. But it's mainly how to control that. It's just a control problem.
Right. Well, and I think that if you write a grant proposal, it's most likely not what you're writing the grant proposal that gets it rejected. There's very few things that would just seriously get rejected on the concept that you're trying to get your proposal through on, and 99% of the time it's going to be that you triggered something that they have like their set of of like templates that they look at things with, and it hit one of those marks to get it kicked out.
Yeah,
And you just
like a
need to
milestone.
keep, plugging away, keep trying until you get through all of that, and that way, once it finally gets on somebody's desk where they've looked at the whole thing, as long as you're not misspelling everything or using text speech, text message speak to talk to them, you're not going to have any problems getting it through. Just intelligently worded, because they're probably not even going to know what you're talking about anyway. But the fact that what you're saying makes grammatical sense, that there's a real person behind that talking, that has an education, has the intellect to at least understand how to communicate. Shit, give them the money. They're ahead of 99% of the other people that try to ask us for money. So
I swear, yeah, we have to look at this as like an opportunity. It's all this work that we've put in for all these years is going to pay off. When this disclosure is coming, it's pretty much here with where things are going. We just have to really push it to the scientific community and sell it to them, which is what I try to do with that video. It's just a shame that a video like that from Fermi Labs is going to get 100,000 views in 3 days, and I really need to produce something. Like, I had a whole idea for a video and producing it and doing everything. But I decided to just go live with it this morning because I spent 3 days trying to get it set up and I couldn't never get it right and work out the way I wanted. And I was just like, I've gone over it so much and I know the whole script of everything I really want to say. Let me just go and put it out there. But this is what's going to get us serious research and respect is talking real science and getting deep with the scientists out there, getting more people from the physics community who are experts on gravity and they're experts on, this antimatter research that's being done, and interview these people and really engage these conversations, because if we don't have these conversations and instead this is the original video by, that original video by Fermilabs, if that's the conversation that the physics community is going to be having, then, we're not doing our job, Hi, kitty. So anyone else wants to join the conversation, there is a link in the description, so you guys can join that StreamYard link, and I'll add you to the stream. All you need is a microphone or a webcam or both. And let's get some new people on to Jared. Welcome to the chat. Ask some questions, man. Or anyone else want to ask any questions or make any comments about, any of the guests or any of the formats?
I got a warp question for you.
Oh boy, I hope I can answer it. I'm not really the guy. Jack Sarfati's the total expert on warp drive. No one else can talk about warp drive but Jack Sarfati. So I'm not Jack Sarfati, I'm sorry. But I'll try to answer your question.
So if you even just type into Wiki interstellar travel, one of the methods that's been proposed is called the Mossbauer effect by a physicist named Winterberg. I'm just wondering what the actual physics community is going to talk about physics. I see that Fermi, is pointing to all this other crap, but it sounds like there's a few physicists out there, like you were saying, Sarfati, but also Winterberg, that have some other interesting type of tech that could be applied. I was just curious if you'd heard about any of that.
I have heard something about Mossberg, the Mossbauer effect. Sorry, not Mossberg, Mossbauer. I have, I'm trying to think of where I heard this before and what, of course, I'm pretty sure it connects to all this similar stuff, but I'm just reading up and refreshing on this. So it involves the resonant and recoil-free emission and absorption of gamma radiation by atomic nuclei bound in a solid. Oh, okay, yes. So this is I talked about this a little bit in my presentation on tantalum and how it was used in the hafnium controversy and hafnium and tantalum and how those metals are they're refractory metals, but they work as gamma radiation spectrum, and they actually function by means of this Mossbauer effect to create gamma ray lasers, and that's sort of the how the detonation works in the hydrogen bomb that was designed by Edward Teller, and it actually relies on this metal acting as a gamma radiation laser or a gamma radiation mirror to sort of concentrate those gammas. And yeah, this is interesting. Have you heard of Cherkanov radiation?
Yeah.
No, I've never heard of that. No.
see if I'm spelling it correctly.
It's the stuff that glows blue, right?
Yeah, and the nuclear reactors.
During all the particle acceleration, you'll pretty much most of it.
The way I understand it is for the Mossbauer, it takes the spherical shells of the electron and it can move those distances just a little bit either bigger or smaller. And so
Cherkov. Sorry.
Wait, Cherekov?
Cherkov. Cherriov, I think. I can't remember exactly.
Cherenkov, yeah. So yeah, it's that blue glow that happens around nuclear reactors, and it's a type of entanglement that causes the release of electromagnetic waves or light, and that light's generated. It's generated in a different way than conventional light waves. You know, like normally we think of this atom, this collapse of that orbital, right? And then it releases the photon when the energy level collapses in an atom, right? And that's normally the normal way we think about the way that light is emitted or radiation is emitted. But turns out there's other ways that it can be emitted. Yeah, I want to find some people. I have an interview that I did talking about this, and I've been editing it down, and I'm planning to post it soon. I gotta get some more stuff together on this, and interview some more people to really learn more about this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's super interesting because it's physics that's. He talks about physics beyond the standard model, but here we have physics that's been out there that's interesting enough and hasn't fully explained, I feel, and isn't fully understood. But again,
What do you think is proved in any way that anti-gravity? What test has been done that's proved anti-gravity thus far? Any test?
none that's proved it. It's so if you look up,
or even weight reduction to a point, if it
let's
goes
get
neutral.
Jeremiah. We got to get Jeremiah on here for this technical conversation, man. So he's in the chat, but I don't know where he's at.
Yeah, because you were talking about gamma radiation mirrors, and gamma radiation is basically neutrons. If you get a dense enough field of electrons, you can block anything. I don't know if you can reflect it if it's like a neutron or a neutrino, but what he's talking about with the high K value sounds an awful lot like they're working on basically putting something together where they can generate such an intense field, a dense field of electrons by pumping that voltage up to force those electrons into that material. And if it's bowl shaped, well, it's going to have a different effect on the outside of the radius than it's going to have from the inside, as well as acting as like a single atom of electron potential rather than acting like a bunch of little bubbles that have been stuck together to form a shell shape like a micelle formation. Instead, it's going to appear more like an actual single extremely large atom. It's going to smooth out fairly well in between the atoms because of the intense amount of electrons being jammed into that. So especially if it's got a higher density on one side than the other. So that way, like I said, what's coming in can get caught in the cup. What's coming in from the outside on the front of it will slip over, like something being shaped to allow it to more easily move through air in one direction, but not the other. So.
Hey, sorry, Kitty. We got 2 new people on the stream. I got rid of the cat, man. Sorry about that. But what's up? You guys got some questions or anything to say about disclosure, this big phone home?
I got a question about outer space. What people think of as space vacuums. So based on demonstrable reality, we can't recreate a vacuum without a container. So it's really it's almost mind-boggling to think that there's a vacuum beyond the atmosphere of Earth without there being some kind of barrier, or you know, it kind of makes you wonder. It's called outer space and not upper space, so maybe they're talking about beyond Antarctica, and they're talking about aliens from outer space instead of like up, because there's a lot of people in history who've talked about the moon and the stars in the sky being luminary, so not material, so you can't walk on them. So what do you think of those claims?
You know what, like that there's inner Earth, and there's this like hollow Earth theory. I heard a
Well,
lot of different claims here.
it's not necessarily a hollow Earth theory. It's more of being skeptical of the world they portray to us from an early age. You could call it globe skepticism.
I mean, there's a lot of worlds that people are portraying. There's a lot of different worlds that exist simultaneously here. We have like the Bible Belt, where there's a lot of people that believe the world only goes back 10,000 years. But if you're talking about like scientists, you should listen to more like astronomers and cosmologists who talk about these sort of things from a scientific standpoint. I think that they have really good insights. And are really good people to listen to. I don't know. Do you study astronomy at all, or?
I've studied astronomy. I was actually I had a $64,000 what's it called, scholarship for studying space physics at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, but I actually didn't do it because I kind of realized that they were, first of all, way too expensive, and they were I felt like they were more indoctrinating than allowing students to freely explore their projects and ideas. Because I've been working on sound healing since I was, high school.
Well, yeah, with undergraduate, I mean, they want you to like at least learn the 4 years worth of their crap before you can start, really.
Yeah, and that's whenever I was
making
like,
your own. Yeah,
there's a reason for that, and you should try to go through the 4 years of learning it their ways and stuff, because there is a lot of valuable knowledge there, and it's not like indoctrination. It's this is like best approach stuff from a lot of really smart people that have really tried this, and it's like
I understand.
it is the best of the best.
I was actually like super into space. Like I said, I was going to be a space physicist, so I was like pretty committed. But I think what really changed my direction was my realization that, hey, I can heal cancer with sound. They're not going to let me do that in college. I'm going to get.
Well, have you looked into lipus? Have you looked into lipus?
No. What is that?
Low intensity pulsed ultrasound.
Okay.
They've already found that like 200 nanosecond burst of 1.5 megahertz frequencies at around like 20 to 30 milliwatts is enough to basically activate, by basically damaging the component that's stopping stem cells from actively taking a part and basically becoming another type of cell to replace cells that are damaged, and activating them essentially. So you can't grow bone. They thought that was going to be something that would be not that hard to do, but they have found that you can stimulate those roots that when a tooth is pulled will grow a new tooth. But on the vacuum thing you're talking about we gotta have a container for it. I think the problem is that a lot of people get the misconception that when you get to a certain level, there's a solid hard vacuum, and there's not. It's a gradation where, like in our solar system, there is more atmosphere than there is out beyond the Kuiper belt. Like the further you get away from the sun, the thinner and thinner and thinner things get. And like even in interstellar space, there's still like two atoms of hydrogen for every cubic meter, right? And if you want to look at like, how can you possibly imagine that would basically have a top on it, right? Is there a top on your glass of water? Does it evaporate into the air instantly and
when
you
it
have no
comes-
water? Or does it stay for a period of time and take time and energy in order to get it to come out of there and turn into a gas? You see?
Yeah, for sure.
So
You know,
we're not
understand what you're
just on a gravitational. Well, I would say we're not just on a gravitational hole. We are on a giant thermal heat sink that's pulling the heat out of anything that hits the Earth, so that it cools off enough that it can stick around for a while too. So
Another thing about gravity, right? So gravity is, after all, just a theory. So, and what I feel like is clearly demonstrates reality is
that's
that
why anti-gravity. That's why anti-gravity
it's more
would be so monumental, because if you can do that, that means you can at least control and manipulate this force no one's been able to manipulate before. We're completely slaves to it, unlike electromagnetism, electricity, light. We can change and modify all these things, but we can't modify gravity yet.
And I think it's
that's a
because we're
game
going
changer.
about
You can find a
the
way
wrong
to
way.
do that.
Because whenever we look at reality,
Maybe
things fall because of their density, right? And this happens in liquid too. But nothing really can be explained. Like, nothing needs gravity to be explained. We already have density. You know what I mean? Like, there's no instance where
we can show, though, that density doesn't. Hold on. We can show that density doesn't have an effect whenever you remove the atmosphere. We can do that here with vacuum bell jars and drop like a feather in a rock, and they fall at the same speed if there's no air to slow down the feather, right? And they showed it on the moon too, where he dropped the feather and the hammer, and they both fell at the same speed and whatnot. Which would, if they were faking that, that's one heck of a vacuum chamber they'd have to build for him to be inside of in order to do that. So
I mean,
it's less energy to just go there than it is to build all that and vacuum it all out and everything. That's why Thunderfoot is making so much fun of Elon Musk's idea of having this giant long tube. He's going to vacuum all the air out of it and keep it constantly vacuumed out every time that basically they have to open up and let people out, and then re-vacuum the tube out. It's a heck of a lot of trouble to do that. So it's a lot more energy.
So what's with the name? Just sorry to butt in. What's with the name Cymaticist? Do you do like cymatics experiments, or are you into?
It was about in high school when I learned about cymatics, and I started doing like my GT project all around cymatics and how the different frequencies show different geometric correspondences to, radial symmetry, and divisible by 3, and some were divisible by 2. But what I found was we tune our music to 440 hertz, correct? Standard tune.
I've heard this before. So where can people I have to let other people get on. So where can people check out your channel and learn more about this kind of stuff if they're interested?
So
do you have a channel
I have my own website where I kind of have a bunch of information about frequencies and how they can resonate with the body. And I also have my YouTube channel where I just put converted music. I convert music to like 432 hertz and 444 hertz, so people can actually feel the increased resonance for themselves.
And I agree with the idea that people can experience something for themselves, and that's very awesome. But don't ever underestimate the value of stepping outside the anecdotal evidence view and looking for objective, traceable evidence that you can actually verify with something. And because a lot of people will look at something and they have this very personal-centric view of the universe, where if it looks like a thing, it must be a thing. I've got a video about ancient giant trees that becomes strangely popular, where because an object, a mountain range, looks like a tree stump, it must therefore be a tree stump. And if that cloud in the sky looks like an angel, it therefore must be an angel. And this old structure looks like giant elephant bones, it must be, right? So if it looks like it, it must be it, because our eyes would never, ever lie to us. And clearly we can see everything there is to see with our instantaneous observations.
Right.
We shouldn't think beyond that, right?
There's a cymatic Jesus frequencies.
So you got to be careful. That's my only point. Like, it's not to say none of the anecdotes lead anywhere, because a lot of times the anecdotes are the beginning for an incredible investigation that leads to breakthroughs.
I've actually
ultimately they're not science; they're anecdotes, and you have to have traceability.
So I'm sure you guys have heard of the Cymoscope, right? The Cymoscope and John Stuart Reid.
I'm not familiar. Is anyone else familiar?
So he's basically the one who made a cymatic medium viewer, and he popularized it because he made it so efficient. But basically, I had a debate with him over because he's a musician, right? And I play guitar too, but I'm not like a graduated musician like him. But I had a debate with him over these frequencies and how they could affect the body differently. And he was convinced that all frequencies are the same, that there's no such thing as a bad frequency. But that's not what I was saying. I'm not saying there's a bad frequency. I'm saying that there's frequencies with properties, right? So you play a frequency and it shows its properties through the medium you're vibrating. So what I realized, I would play frequencies of different hertz, and I realized all the frequencies divisible by 3 showed radial symmetry, beautiful radial symmetry. All the frequencies divisible by only 2, they had this symmetry that was like almost as beautiful, but it was scattered. It wasn't coherent. So I came up with the conclusion after testing it like over years that the frequencies that were divisible by 2 lacked a specific coherent resonance that the frequencies divisible by 3 had. And so I made that theory a long time ago.
It would be important to ask you in your cymatics experiments where you came to this conclusion, if you were driving with pure sinusoids, or if you had a square wave input, or what kind of wave shape you were pumping in. And the second question I would have for you is, were you using the same cymatic plate for every experiment, or did you have a variety of different sizes? Just same one? Okay,
so those are good
be cautious
because it does make a difference, because every variable affects the medium differently, so that the pattern completely changes. So
well, there's 2 things, right? There's the medium, and then there's the geometry. So if you have a square cymatic plate, you're going to get a significantly different interference pattern from around.
I'm on a circle. I'm on a circle.
Yeah, that's what I did too, 4 times, because I was really only interested in circular bifringement patterns that show up on that plane. But you can get some pretty decent line patterns too, and lots of complicated geometries with the square. Yeah, you'll find though that the resonant frequency of every plate isn't necessarily tied to an exact frequency of the harmonic, because it's actually based on the thickness of that plate, the mass of that plate, and the speed that the wave travels through that plate. And then there's the other factor, which is the interface of that plate with the outside environment, which ultimately determines that loading parameter. So that'll control how the waves travel across the surface at the interface, and how the particles on the top of the plate will bounce around, or the liquid. So all those things, yeah, they do play in, but you'll find that the frequency is actually a lot less critical, and it's more about hitting one of the resonant modes of
for sure. You make a really good point.
I think you probably need to look at the fact too that it's not the waveform has properties; it's that it interacts with the properties of things. It just like light. You have 3 distinct.
We can hear you, King Tunes. Just so you know. I'm gonna mute his mic.
Yeah, somebody's got to be muted.
It can pass through
I'm trying to mute him. All right,
it can reflect off it, or it can be absorbed by it. So
I completely agree with you, and that's
how much energy does that have when it gets absorbed? If it gets absorbed or bounces off of it,
Yeah, and that's why John Stewart.
Same thing with the sound. Sound affects things the same way too. So.
Well, let me just point out something that nobody ever
is
talks about,
the peg.
Because here's the issue I have with
the.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a little delay.
Oh,
so
I was just going to say the wave. Right. The waveform is basically the peg, and the item you're trying to affect, the medium, is the block with the holes in it, and whether it fits or doesn't fit. You know what I mean? Or whether it's so small it just passes right through and doesn't affect it at all. So, is the best way I can explain what I was trying to say is that, it's you want to look at it in the other direction. So it kind of helps sometimes to flip things over. The waveforms you're talking about with sound, you find the same thing in science. And I think the problem is people start, wishful thinking of what they want to be able to do with something when they hear some little nugget of truth, instead of taking what they see and, going with what they see, rather than, trying to create an idea and then trying to find a way to prove it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I understand what you're saying.
Just document what you say.
I'm still open to
what you see,
I'm still open to 440 being, just as powerful as 444. But I guess from what I've seen, I know a lot of people who do like cymatic experiments, and I'm not as efficient as them when it comes to like the photographing the medium and the soundproof enclosing. But I know that I can ask them like, hey, play this and let's see what it does. And we've done it through multiple different people. And what I found was the 440 hertz, you know, I really can't tell you. You would have to see it, but it's actually on my channel. I have a cymatic experiment from the person I just told you about.
Would
And
you
I
mind
could,
dropping a link to that exact video to find it for the audience here and drop it in the chat so that people that are interested in it can take a look at specifically that?
oh yeah, for sure.
Thanks. The main chat on the live broadcast, not this private chat in StreamYard. Thanks.
Yeah, you got it. So I just tried to do it and it took me out of the show, but I'll do it real quick. I'll be back.
Well, that's awesome, and I did want to. I wanted to bring up the point that I've heard forever about this 440, 432 for various frequencies. My question for people to really think about is, why does that frequency actually matter? The frequency of a wave in terms of harmonics within the atmosphere is dependent on the temperature and pressure of the atmosphere and the density, of course. So if you change the density of the atmosphere, what is a magical 440 hertz frequency that might, interact with something in this density is not going to interact the same way if you add more pressure. So 440 is now going to require a slightly different frequency. If you take away some airspace, you're going to have to increase your energy in order to get the same transmission power. So think about the respective 440 hertz on planet Earth and how, if that frequency is actually so important and so critical to us, our atmospheric pressure and temperature and parameters that control that rate flow of time have all changed over time. So technically, our 440 hertz today is probably our 445 hertz of a couple 100,000 years ago. Actually, it's a lot longer than that. It's millions and millions of years ago if you look at the expansion rate of the Earth. But the point being that it's not the same frequency. It doesn't stick, and there's nothing magical particularly about that frequency within these parameters for the human body, or really for anything else. We've just given an arbitrary value to it and found reasons to justify our biases. But I haven't seen a single shred of actual, tangible, traceable evidence to support that any of these acoustic frequencies in those super low, long wavelength ranges have anything special. We're not talking microwave band here. We're talking literal sound frequencies. And in terms of their interactions with physical matter, it doesn't really matter.
Look into sonar. A slight difference in the salinity or the temperature of the water causes the sound wave to actually bend. So submarines can find places where they can sit where they cannot be detected because the waves bend around them. So just those slight differences, doesn't even have to be time. It can be something so slight that if you're in one location, that 440 will have one effect, and you're another location, it's slightly different, completely different effect too. So
we got the men in
at the
black
exact same time.
joined.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like there is a small change in atmospheric conditions at which 432 is the ideal frequency to have the same wave propagation velocity speeds as 440 under normal conditions. So that's the kind of funny thing. You want to go high into the mountains, you're no longer tuned to 440 hertz now, are you? Because
Jeremiah, that's true. Yeah, it's different tuning. Well, let's bring in some new voices and stuff. We've had Esoteric Gold sitting in here. We've not said anything for a while, and I just added Mark E to the chat. So let's introduce some of these other guys and see what they have to say and add to the conversation.
What's up, guys? Hey, guys. I don't want to take up anybody's time. I just wanted to say a real quick hi. I've followed you for about 11 years, Jeremy. First time I've ever been live on the air, and I got to tell you, man, you are on the cutting edge of everything UFO and tech. I mean, I can't even. I can't even keep up with you, man. I just wanted to say thanks to you guys, and that's it. And I'm gonna jump off here. I live in Dayton, and
your mom's watching too.
Oh yeah, and here's my crazy mom. My crazy mom. Anyway,
I ran into a friend of mine from high school. He's like, my dad's super into UFOs.
But thanks a lot, guys. You can kick me out. I just wanted to say thanks, man.
Hey, man, that means a lot to me, Mark. Thank you for reaching out and saying and coming on.
You're very welcome, man. Take care.
Oh, that was cool. And Esoteric, man, I didn't mean to cut you off either, man. Why don't you say hi?
Yeah, I'm just sort of listening in, but I guess I could tell you about I have some samples that I'm gonna send you guys of what I've been.
Yes, this is exciting. Sorry. Yes, you've been working so long on this stuff, man, so long, and it's finally coming together. It's awesome.
Yeah, so I got if you study the ancient literature, you know, they found an alchemical temple on the top of Mount Sinai by the pyramids, and the main god is I think it's Hathor, but it's a woman, and it was the turquoise god. And in this temple, they found what is it? This white powder that they had been storing under the boards.
Monotone gold.
Analyzed it. It analyzed to whatever it was put in. So basically, they put it in a glass container. It analyzes, you know, glass. They put it in an aluminum container. It analyzed the aluminum. They couldn't figure it out, and so that's where monoatomics or monatomics sort of started, along with David Hudson. I have so much information I don't expect to go over it on this show, but I'm just basically telling you that. So I called Kingman Turquoise of Arizona, one of the main, mining companies, and told them about our show and told them about my work, and he was loving it, the owner, and he sent me 4 pounds, a few $100s worth of turquoise for free. And so I processed it to make the same white powdered copper, which is highly monatomic. The stuff that they had was probably a lot more pure, but either way, it's considered exotic matter, and it has. David Hudson studied it, and incredible things happened. And you can watch this video. I put it on Discord, some of these videos. And so basically, they put it in a bifilar winding machine, which protects it from radio waves and all these different magnetic waves that are coming in that will affect the weight. And it actually probably matched the frequency and started charging it. And before they knew it, the sample had disappeared right in front of their eyes. And they're like, where did it go? And so they basically, they ended up turning the machine off, and within a few minutes it reappears. And so you got to ask yourself, what the hell just happened? You know, I have an idea of what happened, but you know, I need to go into it. So this powder I made through my little lab, and it took, you know, a few hours each day for several days, but it's super lightweight, and it's sort of the same description as what they talked about. It's super, super lightweight, but we're going to do some samples, tests on it and stuff. Hopefully, you know, I want to put it in argon gas and do some samples on it, because when you put in a vacuum or argon gas, I think energy flows more naturally, and so then it will charge it easier. And then we got to talk to some other people about matching its frequency. But anyway, I could go off. I have other samples besides the monatomic copper. I have that, which is not fully pure, but it's probably like 80% pure or something. I have, I make these samples from real gold, 99.99% real gold. And anyway, so I have a few samples. A couple of them are metals that came out of my production of the monoatomic gold. And then this is, let's see, this is about half monatomic gold and half gold, which I'll explain.
Wow. Okay. Later. Awesome.
Yeah. So I've done experiments with it, and I've had some strange stuff happen. Like, you boil it at its last step, it doesn't boil. It literally just will build, like David Hudson said, it will literally build up energy and then just explode, and it'll be all over your, not explode like a firecracker, but just explode, and it'll get on your ceiling and
flash boil. Basically, it won't do anything until it hits a certain energy level, and then when it does, it hits the tipping point and just goes skyrocketing. Basically,
that's exactly right.
It's extremely nonlinear.
I can hear you.
I've talked to Jeremiah about this, and
That's interesting. That's one of the 4 components for.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the copper that you were talking about. That's one of the 4 components for his ultra high K dielectric. That like $250,000
yeah, you're
the
talking about
dielectric unit is like
copper,
$250,000
dioxide. Or
titanate.
Titanate, yeah.
Or copper, calcium copper titanate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Calcium copper titanate. Thank you. I screwed that up. I appreciate you fixing it. CCTO. It's one of the best dielectric ceramics that we have.
According to that thing, right? According to the article that I was reading, it's a completely like even mixture of all 3 of those components too. So.
I was told.
I'm wondering what the monoatomic version of calcium would be.
Oh, it's an entirely different property with monoatomics. They don't follow the standard rules in terms of how they interact.
Right.
They're very, very strange and nonlinear. That's why what we want to do is actually test the stuff in a vacuum. Because, well, first off, Mark just got that really awesome vacuum pump that's going to be able to get him down to pretty decent low pressures, and we're going to get a second stage as well, either an oil diffusion or a turbomolecular, so we can really pull hard vacuum. I've been looking very, very deeply into vacuum technologies recently, especially when it comes down to electrogravitics. And the effect of atmosphere or anything that's an obstruction to charge flow is a serious problem when it comes down to trying to produce forces, because anything that gets in the way of the electron momentum or the acceleration of the electrons or charged particles effectively can take away momentum from them and cause a reverse current flow that will completely eliminate any forces that could be present in the system. So we have to get down to 10 to the -6 or 10 to the -7 torr just to begin with. But if we can do that, or we can just run in an argon atmosphere, both of those would be suitable environments to add charge into the monoatomics and to add mechanical stimulation to them possibly as well, or electromagnetic fields. We want to at least be able to expose them to a variety of conditions without risking changing them or exposing them to other gases or anything like that. And then we need to add heat inside the vacuum as well. That's going to be another factor. But we're going to build a chamber just to test the monoatomics, because I think the properties that they may have, well, first off, they've never been investigated properly on video as far as we've seen. Not on high quality video in 2021, 1080p or 4K. So that needs to happen first off.
This is just such an obscure topic, but Fred makes a good point that we could probably sell this stuff and fund experiments and stuff. If you got enough of it, it's worth talking about.
I have a sample of monatomic gold, which it's a very small sample. I'm making more as we speak, but it's 99. Well, it's like 98% pure. So that, I want to be there when you guys do these experiments, because
we should do it live. I mean, we should just do
yeah.
it together specifically about this, because I think it's a big enough topic that it needs serious investigation. And if it turns out that first show yields awesome results, then we just keep on going with that until we discover all kinds of new properties. That'd be the idea.
Well, the main
gold mining.
The main property that I forgot to tell you is in the lab, they were the bifilar winding measurements were actually for weight. And so when you add energy into it, they are it's a monoatomic isotope of gold or isotope of copper. And I'm not sure what their samples were. I think even several monoatomic samples. And when they take on energy, their field becomes bigger, and it's more of a neutral field because they have more neutrons. Isotopes have usually more neutrons, I think. And so basically, the more neutral it is in its weight, the more it does not abide by the positive negative polarity law. So it can actually, on the scale, it went negative. And so that means in the right conditions, these monoatomic elements are anti-gravity. And if you study the ancient literature, it talks about that. So,
well, I can certainly say I've seen interesting stuff with the very crappy monoatomics that I've done my own Hudson extractions on, and in that stuff, and I mentioned it on the show before, but I had taken a little stainless steel spoon, put a small amount of powder in it just to fill about maybe a a dime-sized area in the middle, and I just heated it slowly from the bottom. And at a certain temperature, the powder will stop acting like a powder, and it sort of starts acting like a solid material where it floats above the surface of the spoon, and it'll just rock back and forth, almost like when a water drop is, it is set on a surface of a very, very hot plate and it's above boiling temperature. You'll get that little vapor barrier, and it'll sort of levitate over as the water's evaporating. Well, that's what this stuff does pretty much every time. But it does it without having any moisture in it, so it's obviously not forming a moisture barrier that it's floating over, but for some reason it just freely rolls back and forth over the surface of the spoon, which is not exactly a smooth surface either. If you think about it, it's all full of little ridges and dents, so in order to not have friction with that uneven surface, it would have to at least be some reasonable distance above it and support its own weight. So how is that happening? I've never had an explanation for it.
Sounds like it's forming like it sounds like it's forming a superfluid the way carbon dioxide does under extremely high pressure, because it's not, the carbon dioxide is also like, it's a monomolecular structure where all the molecules are fully charged, so they're completely disassociated. That means that they're very easily going to want to go into a gaseous state. But if you put it under high pressure, then suddenly it starts acting like I said, like a superfluid. So it doesn't.
Yeah,
take
that's
much
very
energy for it to
interesting.
go
I'm just doing this at
just,
atmospheric pressure and
fly
temperature.
apart.
I'm surprised to see it under
Right.
atmospheric
Different material, it
conditions.
may react differently. Right. To different atmospheric pressures, or
Yeah. And the worst
different
part is,
gaseous pressures.
I don't even know what's in there. Like, I have no idea what I extracted out of that Dead Sea salt. We used a lot, and we made a huge batch, and we got a very small amount of extracted monoatomics after the third run out of that same batch. So just trying to get it cleaner and cleaner. But ultimately, I have no idea what's in there. It could be a monoatomics of all kinds of various things, and who knows what else. So I'm sure I'll get a lot better result with a pure sample.
According to David Hudson, in the right properties, they can act as a superconductor, or or they basically deflect all magnetic field, which would be what's that called anyway? Not isolator or something.
Diamagnetic. You said reflect the magnetic field. You mean like a diamagnetic substance? Like when you bring a magnet near it, it creates the
well, like a
inverse.
superconductor will reject magnetic field, I think is what he means. Right? So a superconductor will just expel that field, and I think he means it's exhibiting that kind of property where it'll push away from a magnetic source. I did try that, by the way, on my samples, and I couldn't see any interaction with magnetic fields, but there's a quite tremendous interaction with electric fields. The stuff will fly all over the place and disappear on me if I charge it when it's hot.
Do they repel a magnetic field, or are they basically creating a field transition the way graphene does, where like the edge of the graphene is extremely attracted to the magnet, but the flat planes, because of the eddy currents, create a massive repulsion away from the magnet? So it just depends on which direction you're coming at it. Just like the heat will travel through the plane very easily, but trying to go from one plane to the next, it's very difficult for the heat to go through it in that manner. So it's more likely to deflect and go along the edge and come out the edges of the graphene layers.
Well, right, and one of the big reasons for why graphene, I think, I have a theory for it anyways, one of the reasons that graphene may levitate above magnets is, and like you just mentioned with these layers, is because the electron velocity through the graphene is actually higher than the electron orbital velocity within the orbital valences of the atoms that make up the magnet. So it could cause that difference in relativistic electron velocity, and therefore the amplified potential that could cause the self-stabilizing levitation of the graphene.
Well, that's the other thing too, is that it doesn't like float as in like it wants to like, rush away and keep going until it flies off of it.
No, it finds an
will get
equilibrium
locked
point,
on the
right?
surface because the edges are still attracted down. Right, the edges are attracted to the magnet and they're keeping it from drifting around. But the flat plane is pushing it away, keeping that attraction from occurring. So it's creating more, not so much like a levitation, but more like a tractor beam to lock onto it.
Yeah, in
you
space
can
it
get the
would be
same
fun.
effect if you take two magnets. You take a ring magnet and take a bar magnet and slide it through so that their poles are in opposite directions. And you bring another magnet near it and it will attract to it until it gets within a distance to where one of those two magnets is repelling it enough where the two, it won't allow it to make contact. So it'll just kind of stick to it. And then when you drag the one magnet, the other one will just follow it around because of the two magnets that are attracting towards each other versus the two that are repelling each other away. You have to do it on a flat plane though, like that. So you'd have to build a 3-dimensional ring and a 3-dimensional slug, like a sphere and a solid sphere and a solid hollow sphere layered to, you know, to get that same effect 3-dimensionally. So you can lift away from a you know, flat surface. So, but again, like I said, the edges attracted to it. Center repelled away. You know, the top is also repelled away. So
I saw an experiment on the internet where someone had produced this Ormus stuff, and I don't remember, it was a few years ago. They put a magnet to it and it pushed it away, and it was pretty interesting. And they did it for a while, so you could see that.
Well,
it was.
What you're working with isn't a flat sheet. It's a bunch of little tiny individual spheres with their own individual properties, and they're not being modified by connecting together. Right. Because, I mean, if you take carbon and oxygen, stick them together, it has completely different properties. It reacts to light completely differently and everything. And you would think the properties of the light for each component, the oxygen and the carbon, would still react with it, but they don't.
Right. So one other thing people
you know,
need to
when you
understand is basically a monatomic element is a single atom that's not connected with electrons. All matter that we're used to is they share electrons. So these are single atoms, which a sphere is the most efficient shape in nature to store energy or to expel it super fast. And so, you know, basically people need to understand these are considered exotic matter, and they don't go by the standard laws, and they act a lot differently. For example,
they act like wave functions effectively. All of these individual particles, they start to act like a wave function, and they can cohere much more easily than normal matter.
Right. So, for example, let's see. Anyway,
I have a chat here in the live chat. Claymore threw $10 and he wants to know, I wonder what the reaction would be like closer to 0G. Russian plasma experiment on the International Space Station. Do you guys know anything about this, or could you elaborate maybe more what you mean about this? Is this a
maybe if he wants to, you know, give a link to an article or something like that where he can reference exactly which experiment. I'm not actually familiar with that one, but I'd like to know more.
This is the PK4 experiment. Let me. I'm just bringing this up now.
Yeah, I think people should keep in mind that when you're in a vacuum or you don't have air to screw up to react with the energy, it literally starts flowing spiral in on itself naturally, which does a lot of different things. But that's why to anneal these monatomic elements from a specific way you can make them is with, at the last state they're gray, and that it's actually a single atom of gold and a hydrogen ion. And to get it to its fully monoatomic state, you have to anneal it in argon gas at about 800 degrees Celsius. And then that hydrogen ion takes off, and then you have single atoms of monatomic gold. And so in argon gas and in vacuum chambers, it makes them pure, and it also probably makes the energy flow, the plasma and whatnot, act more naturally.
I wonder if Jeremiah could help you with that by, you know, putting something together that has an extremely high voltage DC current, because you could basically expel the hydrogen from one side and make sure that it can't interact, you know, do the same thing with many of the other elements. Like if you split water and fill the entire chamber with just hydrogen, and then push that hydrogen away by pulling it to one side of the chamber, whereas the gold is much heavier, so it'll sink down. That way you can make sure it doesn't have that opportunity to interact with it while you're basically running it through the process to make the monatomic gold. It might be a little easier than having to basically try to, you know, make sure that nothing but argon's in there, because it's kind of difficult to do.
You can do it with helium,
get a much
also
purer.
supposedly.
Esoteric, do you have a vacuum chamber set up yet, or no?
No, I don't. I had to use a process where you make the monatomic gold and then put a little bit of actual gold over your powder that has the hydrogen ion, and the gold seals it in, and then you heat it up, and the gas comes off of it, and then you dissolve the gold back out, and you have the white monatomic powder. So I didn't have to use a chamber, but that it's like $3,000, $4,000 for an annealing machine, which I could purchase it now, but I'm not sure yet that I want to do that at this point.
I mean, in the used market, you can get some of this stuff for just a couple $100.
Right.
It's not incredibly difficult. Wayne, for example, one of our researchers in Canada, just picked up a fantastic dual-stage vacuum system. It starts out with a 2-stage priming pump and then goes on to an oil diffusion pump to get down to very low vacuum for depositing metals via evaporative deposition. And this whole entire system, evaporator, dark ball jar, and 2 vacuum pumps, and the whole assembly that it's on, he picked up for like less than, I think, $600. So you can get a pretty fantastic vacuum setup that you could easily use for everything that you need for pretty cheap if you look around for a while. It doesn't need to be $4,000.
I want to do an experiment with a microwave and hook it up to have argon gas going through it. Even what's the main component of a microwave? The
magnetron. The magnetron you're talking about, yeah.
To make sure that the magnetron is in argon gas, or even if we could fit a big enough vacuum system and literally charge these monoatomic elements in a microwave with argon gas, that would be interesting, and pretty cheap. So,
I mean, ideally, we want to figure out if they respond to certain wave bands. So, we've got to try it. We've got to try low frequency microwaves into the just single-digit gigahertz range, and we need to test light frequencies in the terahertz range for all the visible spectrum to see if they respond to that. We just want to hit them with every possible frequency that we can under vacuum conditions or argon conditions, just to see if they'll absorb one of them and lose weight or change somehow.
Jeremy, check the private chat real quick.
Right on.
We're not sure what frequency they'll be responsive to yet, but we're going to try them all. We don't know.
Got the guitar you got back there.
What's that?
Yeah, that's my Ibanez.
That's an S, isn't it?
It's an S series, yeah.
well,
Ibanez.
then
The
Bob,
Korean.
I can tell from back here.
It's a Korean guitar, but it's.
They're still, they play nice. The thin body ones, they're real light.
I started out the stream with my freaking acoustic guitar. Did you catch the beginning?
No, because dude, I didn't get a notification. I was watching something else. I'm still having notification issues with your channel. It's the shadow banning crap. Anybody else have that happen tonight? They didn't get a notification.
I didn't.
I got 100,000 subscribers and I only have 140 people watching, so that ought to tell you something.
Yeah, because I'm like, wow, he's been on 30 minutes, and I'm just now seeing it, and now see, when I go to my regular YouTube page, it'll just show that you're live, but I don't get a notification.
It's also the titling of the video, man. We did that one the other night and titled it "The Flying Triangle" and stuff. We had that one's got 11,000 views now just because of the title.
I know. I got some messages on Facebook from some people about it. They loved it. They were like,
"Yeah, that was the best.
Do more of
that.
that. Talk more about flying saucers."
Let's get people on to talk more about flying saucers. I agree, man. Let's.
Thanks, Jeremy, man.
Dedicate a show once a week and go.
Dude, that was different. Thank you, Esoteric Gold.
Yeah, thank you so much, and especially thank you
so random,
for all the
and
work you're doing
everyone
off
loved it.
there. All the stuff that you do at home, all the time that you spent developing ways to make these monoatomics, man. Thank you so much. We are very excited about testing them.
Me too.
We'll get you back on.
Do you have a channel where you're basically posting videos of this stuff?
Yeah, Esoteric Gold.
Oh, let's take a look at it. Go to it, Jeremy.
Yeah, I heard if you mix a little bit of potassium with the monatomic gold, it'll actually turn it back into gold again. I don't know if that's true or not, but
well, then that means it's not in its fully monatomic state.
Okay, hold on. Before we lose you, Esoteric, I have to ask you about red mercury. As the chemist, alchemist that you are, I have to inquire your thoughts for our audience about red mercury.
Red Mercury is about that show last week, went on all night. Remember that?
Well, but because I mentioned that he knows, like this, if anybody is going to know maybe how to make it or if it's even possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so red mercury is actually.
Do you have 2 channels?
I do. The one that you might want to subscribe to is the one that has all capitals, because that's my new channel. I'm bringing all my subscribers over to that.
Okay.
I just want to know if those
I only
tubes.
asked because you have
I just want to know
the
if those
same image
tubes that
on
were
both.
filled with-
So
I want to know if those tubes that were filled with red mercury inside all that Russian electronics equipment were real or not, or if that was fake.
What was your question again?
That we were looking at different Russian electronic equipment last week, and they would just have a tube of red mercury, like down around where you'd have like a fuse almost in a in a radio or any, remember it was, guys, what was it? There was different radios. What all were they using those red tubes in, and what were they using them for? The red tubes.
I can answer that question for you guys. I've taken apart
It was bizarre.
well over 150 televisions, many of them being very old. I have seen all the component layouts inside those things, and I can tell you that a component with the appearance of what they were pulling out of several of these machines, first off, those things I've never seen inside. There's not a variant of them that looks different. They just simply don't exist in there.
Well,
So-
if you take the tube of red mercury up to a television, it would distort it instantly.
Yeah. So what happens?
So how are they
is
pulling it out of a
basically-
television?
Is basically the red mercury, after being used for a long time and the electricity going through it, it breaks it down into a percentage of it being monoatomic mercury, which is red. And if you study the ancient literature, monoatomic gold, when it's supercharged, is red. And that's what the red projection powder is all about. But anyway, so that's most likely mercury that's been used for many, many years
Great
currently
deal.
through it, causing it to turn slightly monoatomic. And that is the same stuff that the Nazi experiments with the flying saucers, which if Jeremy goes to the Discord, I put up a video of a black market 1952 red mercury reservoir for one of these flying saucers that came out of it, and they were trying to sell it on it. I don't know if it's real, but it sure looks real.
Well, there was a
I gotta see
UFO
that.
crash. There's a UFO crash in South America that was determined to be a United States vehicle, and there was an Air Force sergeant there that's testified on one of Greer's channels, and apparently there was a red mercury-like liquid substance pouring out of the bottom of this flying saucer. I'm not talking about, you know, a can full of it or something. It was like a lake full of this stuff. It was a very large flying saucer. Yeah, and it had red mercury in it. The mercury was red. And I have to find that case. As soon as I show Jeremy, he'll remember it. It's about 12, 13 years old. It was on Stephen Greer's channel.
Oh,
They used to have the
Jonathan
guy's name.
Reagan.
Oh God! I want to
What's
point
that?
out something else too. I
The
have a
guy's
friend
name
who's in the tube restoration business and sells, or used to sell a lot more, not so much anymore. Tubes on eBay and had sold thousands and thousands and thousands of them. I think he still has something like
There he is.
150,000 tubes
John
in
Wigan.
his arsenal. But just to kind of tell you, in everything that he's taken apart, his specialty is taking apart old equipment, old radios, old television, stuff like that. He collects the tubes and repairs them and stuff. So my point is that in all of the years that he's been doing it, and he's been doing it for like 30 years, he's never seen red mercury in anything he's ever taken apart, ever. And he has all kinds of equipment from overseas and foreign made. He's never seen any little vial that looks like what this guy shows in these videos.
There's
that
a
are
lot of
out
people
there.
pulling these red vials that were put inside the fuse. There's like a hole where the fuse goes, and if you take the fuse out, they can put like these little red vials in. I've seen a couple videos do that where it's like,
Hey, one other thing that's important. The reason why red mercury is used and it does what it does.
but what is red mercury? How do I make it?
It's a highly monoatomic form of mercury. So what's happening is, like I told you,
It's monatomic mercury.
if you charge these monatomic elements in a vacuum or argon gas, they become charged much faster and easier, and they take on a lot of energy, or subtle energy, neutron energy, who knows exactly what. But basically, when these monatomic elements are in the actual mercury, they're sealed. They're literally they're not reacting with the air, so they literally can charge up with energy, and then they become their anti-gravity properties start performing.
And you're saying that the Nazis definitely used monoatomic.
Oh yeah, I've some
mercury.
literature that I've researched over the years, and when you read all these different accounts, and even it's all and accounts of these ancient alchemists, they're all the same. The principles line up, and a lot of these ancient alchemists didn't know what they had, but they talk about it equally the same. And it's just like, there's no way all this can be the same. This stuff existed, and the question
Let me
is,
ask you something. Could this glow by any chance?
there's a form of this mercury after the alchemists would use it over, I think, after they used it several times to make the monatomic, well, actually the elixir of immortality, the elixir of life. When they use it to make that and the philosopher's stone, supposedly, they would actually take the mercury and put it in lamps that supposedly there's these stories of these tombs of these pharaohs and stuff that they would all of a sudden open, and it would all of a sudden, because the air would go in there, it would light up these lamps.
Oh wow.
And these lamps glowed, and then when they tried to open the lamp up, a bunch of mercury would pour out, and so that was called the something salamander. I forgot, but there's so much information. I could talk forever, but anyway.
I mean, I'm wondering, maybe they're using red mercury inside these magnetic field disruptors, Jeremy, these highly pressurized torids.
No, I thought about this. It was the 0525 first, is what it was called by the Nazis.
Well, according to the legend, right, it could be produced, this red mercury, inside of a cyclotron at a pretty low rate. It was like a couple of kilograms per month that they were able to make this stuff in their cyclotron. So I guess it has an incredibly high cost of production in the way that it was being done, according to the legend. So I wonder why you would need a cyclotron. You would need that much energy, and if it is being used, I wonder how it's being used. Is it just accelerating the particles and then somehow stripping them of some property or changing them? I mean, is it impacting something else and forming an interesting molecular compound with another element, like lead, for example? That's supposedly the thing they mix it with. It's a lead mercury oxygenized compound, and it's somehow not like able to be made under normal circumstances. You got to use a particle accelerator to make it.
Oh, you know what's funny about all this? I want to know where the source of all this comes from, because
so do I.
Yeah, well, Bob Lazar's Element 115 reactor story always sounded like a cyclotron. That could be where he got the idea for his reactor.
I'm not even worried about
I'm just trying
what next thing will discover Bob Lazar stole. I mean,
I know, but
listen,
I'm trying to create something with that story, and I'd like to know where he came up with that originally at, because he read it somewhere.
But I think this idea of red mercury being monoatomic instead of this SB207 stuff that we see floating around is probably a lot more viable, because we know that folks a long time ago probably didn't have backyard particle accelerators, but they certainly had some ingenuity, and you can make apparently monoatomic red mercury without any of that stuff. You just have to have patience.
I'm interested in what I'm interested in what he was saying about the Nazis utilized it, and where that came from. If we could find that story,
just so we get it out there, we don't encourage anyone to be dissolving and trying to make their own mercury.
Oh, there's videos all over YouTube. Guys are playing with it left and right.
Yeah, just watch the videos. Don't do it yourself.
I was blown away by all this stuff, because at first we thought it was bullshit, and then all of a sudden you see all these videos, and they take the tube and go up to a regular television, and it completely distorts the entire TV when you get within like a foot of the TV at this little tube. It's really weird.
Probably slightly radioactive.
Oh, well, that would do it. But then wouldn't you need, how would the TV go back to normal? We're talking about old tube style TVs, not the newer ones.
See that?
Well, if you study the Ark of the Covenant literature, it's the same stuff. It had supposedly the monoatomic manna and the, what is it called, the staffs that they would charge inside the center of the pyramid, inside the Ark of the Covenant. And remember, if you study the Bible, it talks about the priest that would carry it. They would tie on a leather rope around their ankle, so if they didn't walk and do everything right, they would get shocked by the Ark of the Covenant, and they'd have to pull them away so they didn't keep on getting shocked and killed. And so basically, it's radioactive, and that also talks about the ancient people in Ethiopia, that the people that protected the Ark of the Covenant, their eyes would become cataract, whatever, and go blind because of this radiation. And so, it's radioactive, definitely. So, but if you can get it, if you get it really charged, it becomes radioactive. If you get it just normally, logically charged, I think it's not radioactive. It's actually subtle energy, sort of healthy, maybe, but who knows?
Maybe the TR3B used red mercury, Jeremy.
Let me ask you this question, Esoteric. Do you think that monoatomic mercury would be a liquid?
Yes. If Jeremy goes to the video I put up on whatchamacallit, you can see the guy shake the red mercury reservoir, and you can see the red mercury through a little window, and it looks authentic, man. You just have to put that video up and
send me that video. While we're waiting for that video and me to cue that video, I want to play another video that we brought up earlier before we lose track of this, because this was from Disclosure Project, one of the ones that caught my attention because it gave actual like descriptions.
Jonathan Weygamp, that is a good one. Let's watch that. That's awesome. South American UFO crash.
Yeah, I'm gonna play this one real quick.
Isn't lithium-6 red?
I think they backtracked for 6 months. So whoever took it, not only did they take it out of circulation, but they went in the database and they erased it. And I'm serious about this. I enlisted in the Marine Corps under the delayed entry program in July of 1994. And I graduated Mount Tabor High School and went to Salem, North Carolina in June of 1995. And I enlisted, of course, delayed entry a year. So I went to boot camp on the 18th of June, which is a Sunday. I went to boot camp. I graduated 8 September of 95. And from there, my MOS was 0311, which was a grunt. And from there, I went to School of Infantry training at Camp Geiger in late September of 95. I did not complete training because I was injured and I hurt my back. And I was sent to the medical platoon there on Camp Geiger, North Carolina, which is adjacent to Camp Lejeune. And I was there, for about a month or 2 months. And in late January of 96, I was given new orders and given a new MOS, military occupational skill, listing a 7212 Stinger Avenger gunner, and subsequently given 10 days leave and then sent to Fort Bliss at El Paso, Texas. So I was in training to be an air defense gunner on the FIM 92 Alpha Stinger missile. It's a surface air missile, and the Avenger weapon system, which is a pedestal and a turret with 8 Stingers mounted on the back of a Humvee. And I was in training for February to late May of 96. And after graduating from that school, I was reassigned my first duty station, 2nd Marine Air Wing, 28th Marine Air Control Group, 2nd Low Altitude Air Defense Battalion, Cherry Point, North Carolina. And I was assigned a Battery B in June of 96. And I went on several operations. We call them ops for short. And basically, I was there, and then I was transferred over to the section for laser strike in February of 97. After going to weapons and tactics instructor 197 in Yuma, Arizona. When I got back, I was asked if I wanted to go, and I said sure. So I volunteered, and I was sent to the section. And we shipped out in March, of that year. We were sent there to provide perimeter security to this radar installation. Basically, this radar station was tracking supposedly drug aircraft that were exiting in and out of Peru and Bolivian airspace. Basically, what we were doing there, we had live ammo and weapons. And one day, Sergeant Allen and the other sergeant, and I'll remember his name soon, Sergeant Atkins. They were, and Sergeant Montalegre, and he was a staff sergeant, E7. E6. The other guys were E5 sergeant, and they came to us and said, "Look, we got a situation where we have an aircraft crash that's possibly friendly, and they need us to go and secure the crash site." And we're like, "Fine." So this is early. This is late at night. I mean, about 11 or 12 at night. And I was on guard duty that night, so I was already up, and it was my shift. We have 12-hour shifts, 12 on, 12 off, where we rotate our section. So we all went out that night. We got up, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning and headed out in Humvees. We had about 5 or 6 Hummers, and we drove to where we needed to go. And then from there, we had to hunt through the bush. So we got there, I don't know, 6, 7, just when daylight had just started to get light. And we found the area really easy because there was a huge gash in the land where something had crashed, and it didn't break anything. I don't know if you've ever been to a crash site where you had trees just broken like in half. Everything was burned, and it was like if you had almost cut like a warm butter with a knife. I mean, it was just it's like something on fire or had or some kind of energy, like a laser almost had like gutted. I mean, it was really strange. And anyway, I was in the front with Sergeant Allen and Sergeant Atkins. We were up front, and we were point basically, and we were like, I don't know, 10, 20 meters ahead of everyone else. We all had maps and radios and compasses, so we knew, so we wouldn't get lost. And basically, we were the first ones to see the object. And basically, what happened is we didn't go straight up the hill, because basically this thing went up the hill and then off into the side of the ravine or the ridge. This is about a 200-foot ridge at least, solid granite. I mean, it's rock. I don't know if it's granite. It was buried in the side of a cliff. But anyway, we didn't go straight up. We went on to the left and walked up to the top of the ridge. That's when we saw the craft. This is a huge ship, and I used to be into sci-fi movies when I was a kid, but this is nothing like I'd ever seen. And when I first saw it, I was scared. It scared the heck out of me. I didn't know what to do, and it was just it was really confusing. So we all climbed down, and it was buried for about a 45-degree angle and into the side of the cliff there, the ridge. And I mean, this is a steep cliff. I mean, it's straight up and down, and it was dripping this syrup-like syrup viscosity, this liquid. It was everywhere, all down everywhere when we went down there, because there was plants and everything. It was weird. It was a purplish green color, and it was a greenish purple, and it kind of like fluctuated. Like you couldn't really, when you'd look at it one time, then you look at it again, and it would it's almost like it. I don't know if it was like alive and it was just changing, but every time you looked at it, you saw a different shade of greenish purple. It was strange. There was one light on it that slowly went around, and the machine, I could hear it. I could hear, I guess, because it was still functioning, and it had like a hum to it, like a really bass, like say if you unplugged an amp from a guitar, that kind of it was really it was really deep, and it kind of fluctuated, and then finally it just cut off, and everything just seemed to stop except the colors and the shades, and it was still that way. When I was looking at the craft, it was buried, so I could see the back of it, and there were these large vents. Well, they look like vents, sort of like a fish gill on the back. I couldn't see around the other side, and I'm assuming it was the same way on the other side. That looked like, I don't know, that could have been used for propulsion. I'm not sure. Again, this liquid that had come out of the ship it got on my camis, and it discolored them and ate them almost like acid. And then it ate some of the skin off, the hair off my arms, and and I didn't know that until later on. But basically, when I was down there with the ship, there was 3 holes, and I guess I'd assume that they were hatches, but there's no way to tell. They were not flush with the with the body, the main body of the craft there. I don't know, a few inches below. I knew there was one on top because you could slightly see it. I don't know about the other side, but there was another hatch, the same width and diameter or whatever of the top hatch, and it was kind of crooked to the side, and it was half open. And I didn't see any lights or anything coming out of it, but I felt this presence that it's real strange. I guess it was almost like, I think I told Leslie this. I thought the creatures they called me, and it was like weird. And I think they were trying to communicate with me, like, I guess telepathically. It's really weird, and I don't believe in any of that stuff. But anyway, it was, I could hear, like, and it was terrible because it kept going, and then it still comes and goes. It's like basically sitting in your car and turning on like an AM station that's not, it's just white noise, and it's turning it up really high. And that's what I heard when I first got in there. This is pretty crude 2-dimensional drawing, but this is jungle here, and this was the craft, and it was embedded in the rock like this. And I'm not sure if this tapered off or how it went, but these right here are the hatches. These two objects here. This one was the one that was half open, and you could see into it, but I mean, it was just black. It was like looking into a closet. 10 meters in width and about 20 meters in length. I'm just not sure. That's just an estimate from what I remember. But it was huge. I mean, it was big, man. And it was shaped like almost like between an egg and like a teardrop almost. It looked really aerodynamic, at least in the shape. But the closer I was close enough to take out detail on it, but it was not just smooth. There was bumps and notches and things in it. It was really organic. It was almost like art. That's really how you would. It didn't look like something that somebody made in a shop. It didn't have that clunkiness or that tin can kind of deal. It was more of art. I would say. It looked to be that it could have been handmade, but out of what what materials, I don't know. Definitely nothing like titanium. It wasn't. See, this is the whole thing. It looked metal, but it didn't have any reflection on it, man. I mean, the sun's coming down, and if you got something made of metal, regardless of it, I mean, maybe if it's subdued with paint and it's got a cami sheen on it, you're not going to see a reflection. But I could see the different shades of the craft. They didn't shine. It just like it was. It didn't reflect anything, and I guarantee if I threw like a flashlight on it, wouldn't have reflected it. Well, the creatures, I think, were calling me to help them. Everything was going to be all right. Then I was so mesmerized and into it, and Sergeant Allen and Atkins, they're hollering, they're cussing at me, get the hell out of there.
Why?
Well, I think I think that they were scared, and they didn't want me to get hurt. I don't know. They were real pissed off at me after subsequently, but basically what happened was after we climbed back up, I think the DOE, Department of Energy people were there. They knew about it, and I don't know why we went there still to this day. But anyway, I was arrested. I had all my gear taken from me by men in black camis, had no name tags. They were older men, probably in their late 30s or 40s. How long was I at the site? Probably about 15, 20 minutes. We were the first people on the position, yeah.
And then shortly you said there were other people.
Right. There were other people. I guess they were government. I don't know. They were there, and they had containment suits, and they had guys. They had a position that looked like, I don't know if it was already there or there was some gap in the jungle where they landed 2 CH-47 Chinooks. They're Army twin rotor helicopters, and they're big, and they had guys coming out in these containment suits. They must have just got there, I don't know, while we were down in the gorge, because when we climbed up, there those guys were, there were the guys in the black camis. And then they put me on a cot that they had, and they had me cuffed with those. They had me cuffed both hands down, and then they had my legs tied together with those plastic fasteners that the police use. I don't know, they're like kind of like cuffs. And then they took me in the CH-47, and they sent me to. We took off, and they didn't drug me or anything like that, and I was just awake there. And
Did they explain why they were treating you this way?
no, that they said that that they were cussing at me, saying that I was a dumb asshole, and that why don't you fucking people ever pay attention to orders, and you weren't supposed to be there, and you're not supposed to see this, and you're going to be dangerous if we let you go, and all this stuff. Man, I thought they were going to kill me for about 2 days, I think. And they had a lieutenant colonel from the Air Force, and he did not identify himself. He might have, I just don't remember. And he told me, if we just took you out in the jungle, they'd never find you out there. And I'm like, well, and I didn't want to say, I didn't want to test him to see if he'd really do that. So I said, yeah. And he's like, you got to sign these papers, and you never saw this, and I don't exist, and this situation never happened. And if you tell anybody, you'll just come up missing. And he was a real abrasive, just a cynical asshole, I guess is the best way to put it. I was at the same installation, but they had me segregated with Air Force personnel for like 3 weeks, and then after that, I was sent back, approximately. All I saw there was Americans, and there's a lot of other nationalities there, Chinese, Germans, I think, were there. And I mean, a lot of other people were at this other base. But I mean, this thing was really, I didn't go in, and all they did was take me to like a, you couldn't call it a cell. It was more of like an interrogation room. And I sat in there for, I don't know, 15 hours. Those guys with a light. I mean, they put this light in my face, and they were yelling at me. And I couldn't really readily identify any of these guys, but I knew one of them was at the crash site, because they were one of the guys that I recognized, because he was in black fatigue, and he was like, "What'd you see?" And he's like, "Yeah," he's like growling. He goes, "Are you a patriot? You like the Constitution?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, we don't. We do it. We're on our own program. We don't obey. We just do what we want." And he's like, "Yeah." And they're like, and they're growling and they're relishing, and they're yelling at me, and they're hollering and cursing. And you didn't see anything, and we'll do you and your whole goddamn family. And they're it was basically that for about 8 or 9 hours. I mean, they took breaks. They were like, "Look, man, we're gonna take you off in a helicopter and just kick your ass out in the jungle, and we're gonna end you and all this." And they didn't physically put their hands on me, but I was sitting in a chair, and I was handcuffed to the chair, and I couldn't move. So basically, it was just this like harassment. I didn't eat anything for like a whole day. No water, no nothing. I just sat there. My section was about 8 to 10 guys.
They all saw it?
No, just me, Sergeant Allen, and Sergeant Atkins were the only ones that saw it. Now, they saw the crash, and well, at least the jungle where it came through. They saw all that, but they didn't go into the ridge, because, like I said, we were 10 to 20 meters in front of them, and they radioed to Hall that we found that everything's fine. It was in late March, early April of '97. So we're talking, like, when I got back, I approached Sergeant Allen about it, because of course he's married and got like 1 or 2 kids. And I went to his house on base housing. He got all upset and threw me out of his house. Said he didn't want to talk about it. And I mean, I guess they scared those guys too, man. And see, I mean, you got to understand, I can't speak for the rest of the armed service, but the Marine Corps, it's monolithic. And when they're told to do something, they're gonna do it. And if you don't want to go along, they'll basically railroad you. I didn't want to keep my mouth shut about it, and I told my first sergeant Powell. I told him about it, and I don't even know I don't think he's still there anymore. I mean, we're talking 3 years ago. So yes, there was life forms in the ship. They were. It's almost like if someone was like reading your mind, and that's the way it felt. I felt like I felt a presence. It was like supernatural. It was no debris that I saw, but there were big gashes in the rear of the aircraft. And what it looked like is it had been hit with maybe a serviced air missile. There were a couple Hawk batteries, and that's a homing all the way killer. That's a low to medium surface to air anti-aircraft missile. Basically, it doesn't have to hit the target in order to destroy the target. What it does is it gets in proximity of it, and it has a high explosive fragmentation warhead, and it basically explodes like a big shotgun in the vicinity of the targeted area, and and by fragmentation, it's supposed to destroy the target or damage it so it won't be able to continue its mission. So I think we shot it down. This is what I think happened: is we shot it down. The Peruvians shot it down. The other guys knew it was flying. I knew that these aircraft were flying because I had been in the command center there at the radar installation, and I heard a couple women there in the Air Force talking about aircraft flying in and out of the atmosphere at Mach 10 plus. So these aircraft are flying around there. They're re-entering the atmosphere or whatever. And I believe that the higher ups knew it was flying in the area. As these were these large vents. They looked like they went into the craft, but I couldn't tell. But it was a shadow. That was the only thing that really cast a shadow. The rest of this, well, this is another thing, was these vents casted a shadow where you could see where there wasn't light, but the sun was shining right on the object, and it didn't cast a shadow, not on anything. And it was like kind of like absorbing the light. It's weird. This is not one of ours because in Stinger school they teach you about all different kinds of aircraft and stuff like that. And I knew a lot of aircraft anyway because I like reading about aircraft and data and that stuff. And well, essentially when I saw it, I'm like, man, this is nothing that I know of. Okay, basically the radar was sitting, and this was again on a hill. It's cammied up, and it rotates and everything. And there's a command bunker that was built under the earth. And I mean, it looks like Star Wars in there. And I mean, it's total air conditioned. I mean, it's really nice. And there's like computers, and they got the control panels and everything that control the radars. And I guess they're linked to other sites, and they get other data coming in. And well, we had guard duty, and and the night that this happened, this was in the early evening, and it was my shift, and I was in there, and I was checking people going in and out. They got ID, checking out whatever. So like these two girls, they come walking out, and they're talking about, well, we got these aircraft flying again, and the other girl says, yeah, they're coming in and out of the atmosphere. But he came in there, and he told me to come back with him, and we go back there, and he goes, I want the logs, because they log all these flights coming in, their bearing, what they are, what code they're squawking, all that. So he gets the books, and I had to sign off for him to take all that. I mean, when you got objects that are re-entering the atmosphere and then stopping on a dime and then turning around and going exactly the opposite direction, that's kind of strange. Meteors don't do that.
Now, is this something that was rare or something that was happening?
Oh, this happened all the time. There's like 3 or 4 incidents where I was duty there that the same Air Force officer came in there to get books.
And do you think these were tracked on radars?
Yeah, these were tracked from this particular radar that were logged in. The reason, I guess the reason they were taking them is they didn't want people to know that they're tracking these aircraft. I guess, I mean, again, I'm just assuming that. So, yeah, I think they knew it was coming in, and they said, we can't identify it. It's violating airspace. So they could have radioed the Peruvians and said, take them out, and then they shot it down. I was confident that when I saw the aircraft, it had been hit by something that had took it out. They were scared, and it was the apprehension, the fear, and then that they were not here to harm us. That's really what it felt like. And I mean, that's not my own emotions. I've seen the creatures in my thoughts, and I saw them what they look like: oval egg head with big dark eyes, big eyes, a nose and a small mouth, no ears.
And they were projecting that they weren't here. They were here.
They were here they weren't here, they were not going to harm me. And that was basically that everything was going to be all right. Just help us get out of here. I think there were, I don't know how many were on the craft.
You got the sense more than one.
Yeah, definitely more than one. Probably about 4 or 5.
All right. So what do you guys think?
Organic and alive.
What do you guys think? Should we keep going the whole thing? Watch the whole thing?
I think he's telling the truth. I know he says at one point that the fluid was mercury looking. I remember it very specifically because Ed was always fascinated by this story too, and I think Ed talked to Wei Gan, if I remember correctly. I got to go through my emails.
I got a lot of people saying he's a liar. This sounds like a victim of a staged event. You know, that this was a
Of course, people
stage.
are going to say he's lying, dude. But if you
What?
don't give the guy a chance to listen to the entire story, he tells the story very smoothly for a guy that's lying. And this isn't the only interview he gave. I think he did one more. But I thought he had stated that it was a reddish, purplish, mercury-looking substance. He does
No,
say,
I remember it was purple and green.
yeah, well, and it's like chameleon paint. Remember the chameleon paint they were putting on cars for a while that would turn purple and green. You know what I mean? How, depending on what angle the sun would hit it or light would hit it. And this was at night. Yeah, people can call him a liar and shit, but if we don't look at the entire story that he has to say and investigate it, why just throw it out? What evidence do they have that it's a lie? Is there something we don't know? I'd like to hear that, but I haven't heard this story in a long time. It's cool to listen to. What do you think? Are you turning it off or letting the rest?
Yeah, I want to keep playing it. Let's
do it.
It's been a while since I've watched this. This was one of my favorites.
Yeah,
Back in the day, they had all these from different Disclosure Project witnesses testimonies up on. And I remember this one was always one of my favorites because it gave actual physical descriptions of that mercury fluid.
I remember on the forum, Jeremy, when we had the forum, we used to talk about this case from time to time.
Yeah, because he also describes physical properties of the metal and describes, like he gives, this is a eyewitness account from close up. It's one of the more interesting cases because of that. And
that's what I'm waiting for now.
What an interesting description. He said it wasn't reflecting the sunlight, and he said he felt like he could shine a flashlight on it, and it wouldn't. This is a very strange material.
It was like it was absorbing light.
Yeah.
Like maybe its energy source was coming.
Well, I've talked about this. It's all connected to like the propulsion system and how the materials work to. Let's keep going.
I think it's great. Keep playing.
That whole craft, it's kind of like, it's almost like if you had an extension like your arm or your leg. And I think the way they can, this is just from thinking about it, that the way they control the craft is with their thoughts, and they have no buttons or anything they push. It's not from Earth. I knew that when I looked at it, I'm not doing this to make money or publicity or anything, but I think it needs to be told. I think people need to hear it. Whether they agree with me or not is of no consequence. Their cover was there to track drug aircraft. I think I don't know, but from what I understand, that they were doing a whole lot more than just tracking drug aircraft. They had laser range finders and all kinds of high tech stuff that I've never seen before. And I couldn't really explain. I know that there was a couple of LRFs there. I don't know what they were LRF laser rangefinder. I don't know what they had those do there, but they were huge, man. Look like big telescopes, but they had them in a bunker, and it was able to rise up, and they can zoom around. And I saw them doing that. Just a bunch of weird stuff. And then not even that, we had like a live fire shoot in the jungle, and there was Green Berets, Army Airborne. A bunch of these spec ops guys, Delta Force there. The murderers at Waco were there. So all these guys out there. The Chinese are there. They're out there training, man, and they're training the Peruvians too. So it's weird, man. Weird situation. Oh, this is definitely something like NATO or some multinational deal. And what I keep going back and really thinking about that. Why are all these guys here? Why would the Chinese be concerned with drugs being smuggled or any kind of drug paraphernalia being smuggled into the States? Personally, I know for a fact that our government are the ones that are importing drugs. But the fact, do I think that this command center? I think it was permanent. I think it's been in operation for a while. They had the big.
Oh, that grin of yours, Jeremy.
Back a couple of the guys were wearing like these rain jackets. It had been raining the previous day, and they were in there, and there were other guys that were wearing containment, like biological suits. And it wasn't like that. It was more high tech, like those big jump suits that you zip up the back, and you can like wear a breathing apparatus in there. Those guys, there was about 30 of them at least. and they marched right by me as I was being taken away. They were marching to get down into the cliff. I guess they were in there to check this thing out. What do I think happened? I think they went in there and they took everything out and they shipped it back home. I think the behavior of the people, yeah, this is routine, man. I mean, these guys are squared away. They know exactly what they're doing. They've been trained to do this stuff before. That was the atmosphere, the total professional, cold, unassuming nature. It's just, we're here to do a job and, get the fuck out of our ways is basically the attitude. I was raised in a Christian home to believe that there was a God and that he created everything, the universe. And here they are, these creatures that I've never seen before, never come in contact with. And this happens, man. And it made me go almost crazy, not like suicidal, but I just couldn't. I had to like reevaluate everything that I knew. It's sort of like when you're a kid, you've been told Santa Claus is real, and then you find out that he's really not. And the Tooth Fairy, it's like now that there's no going back. There's no denial. There's no saying, well, this is, I didn't really see this, and I couldn't really deal with it. Is that what do I do? Do I tell people? But I mean, who's going to believe that a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps in the middle of the fucking jungle is going to see an aircraft like this? It's more like I was sitting and watching a film. Like I was sitting and I was watching what was happening, and I was basically with these aliens, these creatures, and they were touching me. Not like sexually or with instruments or anything. They were holding my hands and they had their hands on me. They only had 4 fingers, by the way.
And what feeling did you get from them?
It was a warm, like loving feeling, like you would have if you were with a family. These creatures are like, I guess you could. Probably the closest thing I could say that they were like almost like angels. And if I had to, I'd go with them right now. I mean, I'd get, I want, and I had this obsession with that. I guess because of the pain of the experience and then the Marine Corps that I just wanted to escape, and I was thinking about, being with these creatures a lot and wanting to go with them and wanting to get out of here because these different agencies are just on their own. They don't obey the law. They're rogue. They're just off on their own. I think this is a project that goes up through the government and everyone has a piece in it? No, I think these guys just operate on their own. No one knows what they do. These guys, they're just off on their own. There's no oversight, no control. They just do whatever they want. They don't. I mean, and they're evil, man. These people are evil. Do I think it goes to Bill Clinton and to the Congress? There may be guys up there that know about it. They're not going to say anything, man. If they say anything, they're through. For those of you who don't know, and I knew Marine snipers that I've heard other guys talk about it, and I've heard that these guys, they go on the streets and they stalk people and they kill them. I know that that Army Airborne snipers do the same thing. They use Delta Force to go grab these people and silence them by killing them. And maybe something else ought to tell. And well, if this goes on, where do they get the money to finance all this and stuff? Well, very simply, either they're selling arms, they're selling drugs. A lot of this business about having the spec ops and they get these unlimited amounts of money. Well, they're not coming. It's not coming from the government coffer. It's coming from running drugs or weapons, or the selling of hardware or whatever.
He knew that there was something going on that was a big secret that he could not divulge. Werner von Braun actually told me that the spin was a lie, that the premise for space-based weaponry, the reasons that we're going to be given, the enemies that we were going to identify, were all based on a lie.
It's all lies. Everyone's lying.
Yeah.
That's what you have to assume. I mean, it's such a fascinating story, but again, where's the proof, man? Like, where's the evidence? Where's this Peru mountain crash case?
Well, and there's definitely radar at the Andes Mountains everywhere. So if anybody's saying, "Oh, there's no radar down there," there's we're talking about the Andes Mountains, which are a very important area.
Yeah, man. It's
Jeremy.
Again, the radar is taking these things out, but they can absorb the light.
Well, what I was saying was, in case they shot it down with something, radar hit it.
Yeah, I
They
know.
would defend it. We do defend that land down there.
Oh, there's another video coming on. Sorry.
That's okay. We defend that land down there. But I had a really good point I wanted to make. Oh, I wanted to talk about something real quick.
Yeah.
The whole thing about aliens and the war and all that stuff. Very quickly, any ET civilization that can make it here is not going to go battle. We're not going to battle it out with them in any type of physical weapons, meaning no bullets, no nuclear bombs, none of that stuff, because they would just very simply drop a deadly virus on us, something far worse than COVID-19. Are we being prepped for some deadly virus that they're going to say that aliens are going to release into the atmosphere? Because let's face it, anybody with a brain is going to say, why would ETs come here and take us on with bullets? So it's just the whole premise of the story is that we would have no chance against an ET civilization that can make it here, because they would take us out biologically. Don't you agree with that, Jeremy? There's no way they would be flying around in ships and firing weapons off at us. That's my belief. What do you think?
I'm trying to find the next video that Esoteric said. I'm looking in the private chat. I don't see it in there.
What's it about?
He was going to show a video about that red mercury or something, and then I wanted to show that video with that guy talking about all that stuff. It was that was one of my favorite, more
UFO videos, absolutely. And I still believe Wayne. I'm telling you, Ed talked to him. You and I went over that case many times years back. I just couldn't remember his name. And I remember it was on Serious Disclosure, and as soon as you pulled it up, there it was. Greer interviewed him, and he said it happened in '94, I believe, or no, that's when he enlisted. '95 is when it happened. It's a really interesting case.
Hey, Tim, you don't have to. If you want to change the topic, you can jump on if you think we're not. This is an open call. There's a link in the description for those of you who just joined. And
I mean, every now and then it's nice to change it up, but I mean, we got to go.
We got to change it up a little bit and talk about some UFO stuff. And this is, stuff that
I know
we want to explore a little bit and keep an open mind. This is our military saying this. This is not me saying this. This is our military and people who.
He's got proof he was stationed there at the time. Well, see, now somebody says anything connected to Greer is entertaining and interesting. Absolutely. I agree with that, but Greer does name drop and stuff like that. But if people don't like this, they can also change the channel. I'm not trying to be a dick, but I mean, every now and then going over UFO cases, there's nothing wrong with that, especially ones that him and I know very well that I'm sure people out here haven't heard of because they're being drowned with what's out there right now.
Right.
Pyramids. Stuff like that. This type of thing here is
they haven't done this for 16 years, and these cases are the ones that don't get talked about a lot.
And there's way more too, but yeah, that was one of my more favorite ones. I know there's another interview with him, and he said that it was Mercury looking. I swear it, Jeremy, but I didn't hear him say that though. I didn't hear him say Mercury looking, because that's what always caught my attention. But he said it was 10 meters long, right?
I want more science on this red mercury stuff.
60 meters long and 10 meters wide, I think he said.
Yeah, sure, it's fascinating. It makes fascinating literature, but who's to know it's not like another element 115 or a,
Yeah, I mean, we're just hearing about it. Man, I've never heard Die Glock, or I've never heard the Nazi UFOs talking about red mercury, but Esoterica nailed it right away. He's like, oh man, yeah, that was from the Nazis. And I was just like, holy shit. He pulled that off so quick, Jeremy.
It's the literature. It's out there. I mean, this is,
I'm wondering if somebody pulled. That's why I really want to find the literature part of it.
It's not new. I mean, it's not. It's in not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say the literate, like the scientific. It's nowhere in the scientific literature. I can't find. I'll go to the monatomic. I showed a couple papers, that I found for ways to convert mercury 2 into mercury 0 or monatomic mercury, and talks about salt using sulfur and a bunch of other chemical experiments. But this is, I mean, I can't find anything that's like real hardcore about, that there's some science to this, and especially it would be in the electronics journals if they were putting this stuff in radios from,
Yeah, I would have read
doesn't
all
make
that.
sense, man. I don't know.
I've never read anything about red mercury, and it's the industry I was in back in the 90s, which kind of went away.
And then what function did it serve in these old electronics if it's just in regular electronics?
Yeah,
The
pull up
function was supposed to serve
pull
as
up one of
an
the
antenna.
videos, Jeremy, where the guy takes the tube and sticks it right up to the old style television, and it turns the whole screen to snow. Then he pulls it away, and the TV goes back to completely normal. I thought that was interesting. They also took the red tube of mercury and placed along other type of electronics. If I remember, an oscilloscope or something, the screen went crazy, and some other things.
Why would it be in a damn telephone?
It interrupted the radio.
Okay, so let me explain this, guys. Let me just pause you for a second and
jam
explain why.
electronics in an aircraft.
Yeah. All right, let me get Jeremiah's take on this. This is an old telephone.
Yeah, so the purpose of red mercury is, and why you would find it inside of electronic devices is actually a rather clever adaptation of an old legend that mercury. Okay, so inside of a thermostat, an old school thermostat, you'd turn it mechanically, and it would vary the angle to Earth's gravitational field that this little mercury vial with 2 contact points inside would be resting. So at some temperature, a bimetallic spring would unwind and tilt that angle, and the mercury would contact, turning on your heater or your air conditioner. And so the mercury out of those things, some people have found through experimentation that if they take that bead, connect both those points, and just allow the current to flow through the mercury instead of a mercury contact switch, that as a series component in a transmission or receiving antenna, they can get amplified output signals, or mainly as a receiving antenna, drastically amplified input signals. And this is apparently due to, according to the legend, the free ions that exist all the time inside of liquid mercury at room temperature, because it's so much above its solid temperature that it's effectively, in its liquid state, it's highly energized right now, just below boiling. So it's full of this energy that it has individual charges that can amplify small signals that come into it. So apparently it's acting as an amplifier for any small, tiny electronic signals. Inside of a radio or TV, it would act as a massive signal amplifier for faraway stations, supposedly. And red mercury would just have even more of an ionic charge, even more of a capability of amplifying the signal based on the legend of how mercury supposedly already does this. Now, anybody's welcome to take one of these sealed mercury vials, which are not dangerous to work with or handle, because again they're sealed and you can find them out of old thermostats, and just put them in series with your radio receiving antenna. See if you get a better signal. A lot of people report that in certain configurations they do get a drastically amplified signal just by adding this component.
If that's true, you would think that someone would have patented this and made a fortune off these signal amplifiers, because that's what it is. It's a signal amplifier.
Well, it's a principle of the material itself. How do you really how you patent something just like this? You patent a geometry, maybe where you optimize if you figured out exactly why mercury would amplify a signal, assuming it's
well, then
true,
you manufacture them and sell them. People make
Right.
fuses. I mean, what's the difference?
Why?
I mean, dude, back then, before cable and all this stuff, signal amplification was the ticket. I mean, I just can't believe that there wouldn't be. You could buy little boxes that you would hook up to your TV with that little red mercury tube in there. I mean, I just can't believe it wasn't a gig over here that was sold, because people that are old enough know before cable it sucked. You had to mess around with the ears on the TV and point them a certain way, and that was when I was a little kid, but before cable really took off. But I find it hard to believe that we had this and didn't there wasn't any marketing
Well,
or
I
nothing
would
done
actually
about
say
it at
that it's
all.
probably been patented. It's probably been well established and patented. I've never really dug back into the history of the patents for mercury amplifying antennas, but I wouldn't doubt for a second that they exist and that there are several patents on it. As far as red mercury goes, it's a whole different subject that has nothing to do with the known properties of mercury. So here we're talking about a speculative thing that we don't really have any evidence for, and even just the pictures that pop up online. Look at Jeremy's screen right now. I mean, it's just it's a ridiculous variance in terms
Looks like
of
paint. A lot of it just looks like paint to me.
yeah, exactly. It either looks like paint or it looks like clear fluid. I mean, red mercury was also a shorthand to describe alcohol thermometers, or the fluid that was inside alcohol thermometers, and how it was somehow clear. So you got to keep in mind this stuff has had a lot of different terms, and people generally have no idea what it is. But they describe things as red mercury that are not red mercury, and compounds that may contain mercury that are not mercury. But again, we don't have access to any known liqueous substance at room temperature that is completely opaque, highly conductive, and would act basically like liquid mercury. Like I've never seen that.
It doesn't have that beautiful chrome. It doesn't have that beautiful chrome look that mercury has either. Mercury's beautiful when you look at it. It's it looks like liquid metal. Well,
although I will say that if Esoteric is correct about the monoatomic red mercury idea, that it may not actually reflect light and look like regular mercury. It may actually absorb some of that light and start to build up energy as a result. So it might look a little more opaque-ish, like a little more matte finish.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like when it turns red, it's like it's getting ready to lose its properties, because he said that's very old mercury, didn't he? He said it turns red. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah, he said that once you get a bunch of energy into it, apparently it changes color. And it's not just mercury that I guess does this; it's other elements as well.
Pretty interesting stuff, though, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you get gold down to a small enough size, it starts to look red. It's kind of interesting. Silver, if you get it down to a small enough size, looks yellow.
Maybe the reason it hasn't been used and marketed in signal amplification is maybe this stuff is being used by the government, and there's just something about this that we just stumbled upon that we need to look into more. You guys need to. I don't mess around with that.
Well, again, we don't even know if it's real. That's the problem. This stuff may not even exist.
It's bizarre, right?
One of those things, man. It's a rabbit hole in the internet.
But honestly, if it is anything, I'm going to try that pursuit of the monoatomics, because there's an actual venture that I've seen enough information to support it being worthwhile to investigate. Whereas a lot of this stuff is just like what we're looking at right now on screen. It's just bogus. Come on. I don't really know about all that.
It looks like someone found this on the internet and made a marketing gimmick to try to sell this stuff. And
oh, there's a bunch of websites, man. If you go to try to buy red mercury online, you'll find a bunch of sites that take Bitcoin only with their phone number.
I would like to get a hold of these guys. These guys look like official. They actually sell it. I'd like to call them up and ask some questions about it.
Oh, bogus.
Jeremy, didn't the guy on your
so?
channel? Didn't the guy on
You
your
think this
channel
is
last
bogus?
week have some of it? Didn't the guy pull some of it out that was on your channel last week? Oh, he did.
We've never seen anybody pull out red mercury on this channel.
Well, you know what? Must have been a video we were watching.
Was some guy talking about it. It was Bernard, I think, in the other chat the other night, who brought it up first. And I've been fascinated with it ever since. But look, it's like was this like how to turn into that?
Certainly is interesting. If it's real, if it's signal, man, if it amplifies a signal like that, that's crazy. I mean, that can definitely be used for something.
Oh, hell yeah, man. You're basically getting extra peak amplitude for nothing, right? I don't know where the energy is coming from, but apparently the theory is that it comes from just thermal ambient energy, and the mercury converts the signal.
At room temperature, I mean, there's something really going on.
Well, room temperature is still 500 and something, or 300 and something degrees above absolute zero, right? So it's pretty friggin' hot right now compared to deep space, and there's a lot of energy to extract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What will be interesting is, hey, you could prove it pretty easily, right? You just put it in a very strong field or whatever, or radiate some power through it, and it should change. It should lose temperature if it's actually adding power, and that should be a very easy measurable test that we can prove flat out with simple equipment. So
how expensive is it to buy some of this red mercury?
$450,000 per container. Minimum size of order is, I think, what is it, 4 kilograms, 3 kilograms, 4 kilograms at roughly like $49,000. Yeah. So if you aren't going to buy at least one Bitcoin worth of this stuff, you can't get a sample.
Well, if it's that expensive, then there's something going on.
Yeah, it's obviously bogus, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Any other chemical manufacturer has the ability to send you small samples, has the ability to split out their production and at least send you something to prove that it's real. But in this case,
DuPont sells it. Then we'll know there's something going on with it. It's got to be like a large chemical manufacturer that would sell it. But you know what? Maybe it's one of those things that you probably got to be licensed and everything to buy some. But who the hell can afford it? I mean, to even run a little test on it, you can't buy a little bit of it. So Bob Lazar would sell it. He sells all that kind of crap.
United Nuclear.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, I think I'm ready to go to bed.
Esoterical. Finally, hey, hold on. There's one more thing. Esoterical did find a link to that posted video in the private chat in StreamYard. So let's go ahead and pull that up.
All right.
I'm falling asleep here.
Well, get this one last video on because we talked about it quite a few times.
We were online all day posting, bro, and I have a concussion. I'm having a hard time remembering anything, but I was seeing stars all day and then threw up. I hit my head real hard, and the girl next door wants me to go to the hospital, but I told her I don't have any health insurance, so unless I get really bad, I'm not going to the hospital.
They can't do nothing for you anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I'm feeling better, since when I puked, it was really bizarre, dude. I was seeing stars, and I've never had a concussion that bad like that before. I was knocked out for a couple seconds.
What the heck is this, man? This looks like so scammy.
Yeah, when it's filmed up close like that. Is it the Terminator's eyeball from the original movie? Oh, look at that. What was going on in there? Now it's reflecting light.
It looks like it has a window over it, like it's in kind of a sealed vessel, and the light reflection appears to be from the surface of whatever the vessel it's in.
What is that thing? That is strange, isn't it?
It is very
strange. And it's got wiring going into it.
And recently electrical taped wiring from a very old, what looks like brass canister. So that's a modern material on an old device that wouldn't have been originally on that device.
What does it say? Mr. Eduardo Porto, Portugal.
I think it says, "I'll take your money and send you nothing."
Signal amplification, brother.
Red Mercury, Congo.
Next thing you know, Alex Jones will be selling it. You drink some of it, you know.
And then you can be,
ultra red mercury 24.
Red mercury is a hoax substance of uncertain composition purportedly used in the creation.
Yeah, listen to this. It's pretty good.
As well as a variety of unrelated weapons systems. Mercuric iodide is a poisonous, odorless, tasteless, water-insoluble scarlet red powder that becomes yellow when heated above 126 degrees Celsius, due to a thermochromatic change in crystalline structure. However, samples of red mercury obtained from arrested would-be terrorists invariably consisted of nothing more than various red dyes or powders of little value, which some suspect was being sold as part of a campaign intended to flush out potential nuclear smugglers. The hoax was first reported in 1979 and was commonly discussed in the media in the 1990s. Prices as high as $1,800,000 per kilogram were reported. History, references to red solid mercury began to appear in major Russian and Western media sources in the late 1980s. The articles were never specific as to what exactly red mercury was, but nevertheless claimed it was of great importance in nuclear bombs, or that it was used in the building of boosted fission weapons. Almost as soon as the stories appeared, people started attempting to buy it. At that point, the exact nature of the substance started to change, and eventually turned into anything the buyer happened to be interested in. As New Scientist reported in 1992, a Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory report outlined that when red mercury first appeared on the international black market 15 years ago, the supposedly top-secret nuclear material was red because it came from Russia. When it resurfaced last year in the formerly communist states of Eastern Europe, it had unaccountably acquired a red color. But then, as a report from the U.S. Department of Energy reveals, mysterious transformations are red mercury's stock in trade. The report, compiled by researchers at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, shows that in the hands of hoaxers and crewmen, red mercury can do almost anything the aspiring third world demagogue wants it to. You want a shortcut to making an atom bomb? You want the key to Soviet ballistic missile guidance systems? Or perhaps you want the Russian alternative to the anti-radar paint on the stealth bomber? What you need is red mercury. A key event in the history of the red mercury story was an article in the daily Russian newspaper Pravda in 1993. Claiming to be based on leaked top-secret memos, they noted that red mercury was a superconductive material used for producing high-precision conventional and nuclear bomb explosives, stealth surfaces and self-guided warheads. Primary end users are major aerospace and nuclear industry companies in the United States and France, along with nations aspiring to join the nuclear club, such as South Africa, Israel, Iran, Iraq, and Libya. Red mercury was offered for sale throughout Europe and the Middle East by Russian businessmen, who found many buyers would pay almost anything for the substance even though they had no idea what it was. A study of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists in 1997 has perhaps the best summary of the topic. The asking price for red mercury ranged from $100,000 to $300,000 per kilogram. Sometimes the material would be irradiated or shipped in containers with radioactive symbols, perhaps to convince potential buyers of his strategic value. But samples seized by police contained only mercury, 2, oxide, mercury, 2, iodide, or mercury mixed with red dye. Hardly materials of interest to weapons makers. Following the arrest of several men in Britain in September 2004, on suspicion that they were trying to buy a kilogram of red mercury for £300,000, the International Atomic Energy Agency made a statement dismissing claims that the substance is real. Red mercury doesn't exist, said the spokesman. The whole thing is a bunch of malarkey. When the case came to trial at the Old Bailey in April 2006, it became apparent that news of the world's fake Sheikh Mazhar Mahmoud had worked with the police to catch the three men, Dominic Martins, Rock Fernandez and Abdurrahman Kanya. They were tried for trying to set up funding or property for terrorism, and having an article for terrorism. According to the prosecutor, red mercury was believed to be a material which could cause a large explosion, possibly even a nuclear reaction, but whether or not red mercury actually existed was irrelevant to the prosecution. All three men were acquitted in July 2006. Analysis: a variety of different items have been chemically analyzed as putative samples of red mercury since the substance first came to the attention of the media, but no single substance was found in these items. A sample of radioactive material was seized by German police in May 1994. This consisted of a complex mixture of elements, including about 10% by weight plutonium, with the remainder consisting of 61% mercury, 11% antimony, 6% oxygen, 2% iodine and 1.6% gallium. The formula reported for the powder component of the mixture was Hg6sp208 cyclopyrorthoantimonate.
Sounds about right with
Virtually
antimony.
present in its pure metallic form. The reason why somebody had assembled this complex mixture of chemicals is unknown. Equally puzzling was the presence of fragments of glass and brush bristles, suggesting that someone had dropped a bottle of this substance.
That antimony wouldn't be a liquid though, would it?
No, they used antimony
Analysis
to make
reported in
monatomic gold in
1998
the
of a
ancient
red mercury
alchemists.
sample concluded that this sample was a non-radioactive mixture
Yeah,
of
so this
elemental
compound that
mercury,
they're talking about, it wouldn't be a liquid after all.
iodide, which is a red-colored chemical.
I don't know. Probably would be red mercury. Would be
Another
liquid.
analysis of a sample recovered in Zagreb in November 2003 reported that this item contained only mercury. One formula that had been claimed previously for red mercury was Hg2sp207 pyroantimonate, but no antimony was
Yep,
detected.
that
in the
one. I think
2003
that formula is
sample.
bogus.
Explanations.
Could
Red
be.
mercury was described by many commentators, and the exact nature of his supposed working mechanism varied widely among them. In general, however, none of these explanations appear to be scientifically or historically supportable. Background equals traditional staged thermonuclear.
All right, so it sounds like it's bullshit to me. I'm falling asleep, man. I don't know how much more of this I can take.
Yeah,
It was fun, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it is. Well, at least we know that now, probably. So we can write that one off, bro.
Yeah, it was good to hang out. We had a good show.
Yeah.
Nice 3 hours. And that was heading up. Jeremy, how long were you on the other show? Like 4 hours, right?
Dude, him and I have been online since 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, I just been watching it. I've been sitting in the same chair.
Till he came on. Then it went to part 2, and then I messaged him like, "Hey, when do you come on tonight, man?" And I woke up in the chair, and there he was, laughing and stuff. Last thing I saw was Corbell bitching about the Green Pyramid, that let's battle it out, and like being arrogant. And I fell asleep even during him. So we were online all day with that thing, bro.
Yeah, let's take a minute to everybody unmute your mics. Come on, man. Let's give Jeremy a big round of applause for actually sticking in there this entire friggin' time. Unbelievable.
Yeah, bro.
Nice, Jeremy.
I'm gonna go lie down and go to bed. Thanks, guys.
Talk to you tomorrow,
I wish it
Jeremy.
was more productive, but I guess we'll get. Part of this is the work that we do here. And this is kind of like going public show what we do behind the scenes, because we meet and we discuss all this stuff and we hash it out.
Yeah.
And we decide, because what if this was some kind of top secret shit that they're trying to cover up? Of course they're gonna,
What about maybe a fresh UFO show tomorrow night or something, after our brains are recharged from today? Or something,
that'd be cool. We should do something tomorrow. I gotta go hang out with my kids tomorrow. I ditched them all day today to go do this, so
that's cool. Well, if you're around tomorrow night or something, maybe we can get on and do something like we did last week. All right.
we'll definitely do something like that. I want to do something like that again soon, where I like these calls where we just have randoms on and tell stories. Even if stories aren't.
Not everything we're posting is going to be right 100% of the time. We're
Some of
evaluating.
the stuff's just interesting because it's just a common phenomenon. It's just fun to hear stories too, even if there's no evidence. So we like to do
some research and pick some stuff out, bro.
That's part of the work too, is just sorting.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just gonna say that's part of the work, is just sorting through all this stuff, So
we've done that for so many years, but there's cases that we've just forgotten about or reminded of by a certain story. It'd be nice to go back over a lot of stuff again, get a fresh perspective on it.
Hey, Jeremiah, I'll talk to you
Totally.
soon about these samples, all right?
That sounds amazing. And again, thank you so much for all the hard work to make them. And I've been wanting to do what you are doing right now for a very long time, but never devoted the time to do it. And I'm super appreciative of the fact that you're devoting the time to do it. So I'm looking forward to it, man. Let's make it happen.
Right on.
Hey, thanks again, Jeremy, for doing this. After this, I'm going to go ahead and take a little break after the show, and then Mark and I will get on the phone later, and we're going to do a lab night. So we're going to try to get some science done and move things forward here for our next steps of progress.
Cool,
yeah,
man.
why don't we do a lab update here soon and on another date and another stream, and we're gonna do some more. I gotta plan this out. I want to have like set nights for doing all this stuff so we can get it all in every week and just keep pumping the information out, because that's all right, guys. Thank you so much. I'm about ready to pass out in this chair. Thank you, guys.
Well, make it to your bed first. We'll
Hey,
talk to you later.
Jeremiah, I'll send you those over on Skype. So
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. I did get your other messages, by the way, on Skype. Just letting you know. I've been kind of off Skype for the most part, except for just occasional correspondence with Sean. But I do have a bunch of stuff that you sent me that I need to go back through and fully analyze, take a look at. So I am getting your messages. I just haven't had quite the time to fully explore them yet.
that's all right.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
was
I
gonna say,
appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
just send
man.
that to me. Oh, I got it.
Gonna
Okay.
sit on there. So
All right,
Yeah.
and good night, everyone. Thank you for watching.
that's one. I got a couple others if you need to see the others.
Peace, dude.
Thanks, man.
Peace out.
Later.